say that sounds like an overreaction, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really need, like as far as, like, military basing areas, we don't necessarily need Bulgaria. It was a nice place to be, to spread stuff out, and also have some of our forces operating from...
And have MasterCard.
Man, honestly, wait a minute, so I see someone actually explained it really quickly in the chat. They said that apparently they would just need a passport, not a visa, to visit the United States. So basically kind of like how, we try to show your passport and you get in without having to show a pre-approved visa to travel to the UK. That's what they were wanting. So they just wanted a Bulgarian to be able to show up to the US, show their passport, and that would be good enough to get in.
Interesting. I don't really know like all the details about that, but it sounds a little crazy to cancel our basing there over something like that. But
Welcome
I guess that's what they're right.
Let's see here. Visa free. Yeah, so you would only need a...
So that's what they're looking for, is like for short visits. Less than 30 days, which was actually kind of lengthy when you think about it. But for less than 30 days, they were looking for Bulgaria just to show up with a passport and they'd be able to get through. I mean, honestly, I would have to say this, though. I guess that is kind of a little bit fair when you look at it, because we're saying that we trust Bulgarians in their country for military against Iran, but we also don't trust them enough for their citizens to show up just with their passport. They need a visa. So I guess that might have been insulting to the Bulgarians, the fact that they allowed us to base in their country when they don't have to, and then the U.S. wouldn't just allow their citizens to show up like, those from Britain and just show their passport and get in. And so they got pissed off enough they and the Bulgarians today. But now it's time for us to get to the Russian responses to everything that happened in Galati. So moving us on into we did get to hear that Medvedev, who started the statements off today, said the following about the situation. Citizens of EU countries, you should realize your authorities have unilaterally entered into a war with Russia. So be vigilant and don't be surprised by anything. The peaceful sleep is over, but you know who to ask why. So Dmitry Medvedev basically just openly stated that Russia is in a state of war with the whole of Europe today. He doesn't hold an official government position, but he is a significant advisor. Well, I was about to say he's a significant advisor to Putin.
Well, no, he's more than an advisor. He sits on the Russian Security Council of Russia. Actually, he's the deputy chairman.
Oh, I actually didn't know that. That's news to me. I always thought he was just like some advisor, like that dude guy with the little.
Oh no, Dugin's not even really an advisor anymore for the most part. He hangs around those circles, but he's not really an official advisor to my knowledge. But no, I was explaining that in my video earlier today. Everybody writes off Medvedev as they say, oh, he's got his little problem on the side. He's fond of certain, beverages possibly. They also say, he's a lunatic. He threatens NATO all the time. But this guy, actually, he has the ear of Vladimir Putin, like constantly talks to Putin. He's actually a legit advisor. So like I said, the deputy chairman of the Security Council of Russia. So he wields real power. And at one point, he was actually in charge of Russia when Putin needed to switch up with somebody. So Medvedev is nobody just to write off. Like, he's crazy. And it gets old to hear the threats all the time. But he's essentially, basically the mouthpiece for Putin, what he's really thinking internally.
I would have to say, that's interesting. I actually didn't know that about Medvedev, so thank you for sharing that. We did get to see, however, that while he was stating that there is an open state of war now between Russia and Europe, One of the spokespeople for the Kremlin, Maria Zakharova, stated that the accusations of Russia's involvement in the drone incident in Romania are groundless. So while Medvedev saying that it was Russia and they should sleep with one eye open because they're out to kill everyone in Europe, Zakharova was then saying that Russia's involvement is completely baseless. It wasn't even their drone. And then Putin came out, who is the president of the Russian Federation and the dictator, and stated the following. He said that the origin of the drone that struck a multi-story building in Romania cannot be determined until a proper investigation is carried out. And then he said, after all, we know that Ukrainian drones flew into Finland, Poland, and somewhere in the Baltic countries. The first reaction was exactly the same as it is now in Romania. Well, the stupid thing about that is that Ukrainian drones did veer into Baltic state countries because they were having to fly north to bomb St. Petersburg. There is no part of Russia that's south towards Romania for a Ukrainian drone to be flying that way to go blow something up. So unlike all of the other situations where we've had to even get on air and say it could be a Ukrainian one because it might have had electronic warfare interference, turn it over and into the border area of Latvia, Estonia, or Finland, this is quite clearly a Russian attack. There were attacks during that time at Renai and Izmail in Ukraine, and then an explosion happens in Galati in the midst of all the other Russian drones blowing up on the ports of Renai and Izmail, and it literally has the same skin and design as a Gran 2. I mean, come on, that doesn't take a lot to put the pieces together.
Yeah, and also look at the double standard. Putin is saying that they have to be able to get concrete evidence that the drones that went into Romania are apparently Russian drones. He said there needs to be due diligence to determine what the origin of those drones actually is. And meanwhile, he's saying without any evidence whatsoever that Ukrainian drones are flying all over the Baltic states with zero investigation. What a double standard with that. It's like Putin clearly hasn't had the chance to inspect the drones on the ground inside of the Baltics. He can't even go there to inspect it. So that's kind of a wild thing to say too. Also, it's like, is anybody really buying this garbage? Is like the Russian Federation doesn't know what they fired. Like the fact that Putin's suggesting an investigation, like he doesn't know what his forces are doing, is silly on his face.
Also, that's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, there's literally drone debris on the ground that we saw from yesterday. I think we have it on the map. Oh, actually, we don't, sadly. I forgot. We just showed that on Twitter, and I didn't put it on the map. But there were literally debris fragments on the ground from the drone, and it was literally a Gran 2. There's only one drone that has that kind of black carbon fiber-looking skin to it in the world right now, and it's the Gran 2 made in Russia. So it's not like it's up to question of, oh, who in the world could have built this clearly distinct drone with this very specific type of skin. Who would ever guess? It is Russia. I mean, quite literally. There's no question about it. There's no doubts in anyone's mind. It is a Russian drone. But moving us on out of that bit of news about how the Russians have responded to this whole situation today, in the meantime, we did get to hear out of the Kremlin, or more so out of Moscow, that at the same time that all this was going on, Putin also stated, just slid this one in the midst of the whole Romania situation, it is impossible to name specific deadlines for ending the war in Ukraine under conditions of active combat operations, meaning that they now have reversed from their statement of this could go on for like 3 more years. Now they're saying they have no clue when this thing is ever going to end because they're not achieving squat in Ukraine. As a matter of fact, they're actually losing ground right now on the southern front, so they're being set back even further from what they were trying to achieve. So now he just slipped that one in the middle of the day and said, actually, we don't know when the war is going to end. So now the Russians are working off of an indefinite war timetable. Folks, I remember when the Russians said, Putin is a wise man, a chess master, unlike your American president who puts your country into forever wars like Iraq and Afghanistan. We are different. We enter forever wars in Eastern Europe. Like we keep fighting for 20 years and achieve nothing. But anyways, moving us on out of that, we do have a lot more news to cover inside of Ukraine and also over in the Americas, which we'll be getting to here in a brief moment. But before we get into all of that news, which we still have a lot of interesting and big news to go, I do want to say a humongous thanks to every single person who has been watching the show so far today, because we have seen that a humongous amount of people have been here. 17,100 people have been here at the peak, and 86,000 people have watched this stream in the first hour and 10 minutes. And I got to say that we're entirely honored and heavily appreciative to know that so many of you all continue to watch this channel every single day as your primary source of Yesterday, we were number 25 in America in the top live streams, and it is something to know that people continue to watch this show in such large numbers every day to be able to get their news. I hope that so far our analysis and also our coverage has been up to spec and up to Enforcer standard as it has been for 1,556 days. And before we move on into the rest of all the huge news that we have, I do want to make sure that we take a brief pause here to get 3 questions in the chat. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping to our first super chat of the night and then getting right back to our breaking news after we grab 3 of them. Our first one goes to none other than Jeannie, last name Tolls, who put in a $100 support. And thank you very much, Jeannie Tolls, for that $100 support. And we do appreciate that generous support. Once again, they said, I want a leader who knows the difference between a horse or a cow or a chicken when he sees it without the confusion. We're in good hands, boys. But Jeannie, yeah, I mean, you got to, like, we have to be fair here. Like, we have to be fair a little bit. If you're presented with presented with a question as difficult as a lion, tiger, bear, or cow, like, that's not just a question for the weak-hearted. Like, you have to have a heart of steel. You have to have that iron in you before you go into an examination like that. If you go in unprepared, that question could blindside you. Like, you got to watch out. So, I mean, we can't ask too much. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say, folks, I went in yesterday, as all of us do weekly, for our cognitive test, and they beat me, folks. It was bad. They showed 4 pictures of animals. They had a dog, a fish, a giraffe, and also a grizzly bear. And they asked me which one was the dog. And honestly, I just couldn't tell you. It caught me, blindsided me. I had absolutely no clue. I was confused. I was sweating profusely. I sat there and said, my God, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, Jack, your corn pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys. But yeah, you gotta make sure to get those difficult questions down, like what's the difference in between certain types of animals, because clearly that comes up every day. And it's always a hard one to answer.
Could you imagine that fellow taking the LSAT, the law school exam? Oh my God. Like, that would probably look like freaking Arabic to an English speaker. Like that would be horrifying. Like, the LSAT, by the way, folks, is the law school entrance exam. It's very difficult, or at least I found it difficult. I think most people do. There's some people that ace it, but that's kind of rare. But it's extremely difficult, very complex questions on that thing that require a lot of thinking, which is probably like 10 or 15 times harder than what's the lion, tiger, or bear question. So, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that would be interesting to see. I don't think he'd do too well at it, but folks, it's always hard to get those answers right, though. I mean, who in the world? Like, if someone says that a giraffe is a dog, I mean, clearly it's just a tough day for him. So clearly doesn't show anything wrong. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and a huge thanks to you for always supporting this channel, Jeannie, last name Tolls. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running day in and day out to be able to cover this news. It's folks like you who help this channel to stay ad-free and sponsor-free on our live streams and help us to keep the lights lights on and paid the bills that we're incredibly appreciative of because you let us work non-stop. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so this one goes to Howard Mendelson, who puts in a very generous $100 support as well. And thank you very much, Howard, for that support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. Sadly, I will have to censor just a little bit here, but he believes that some of the events in the Middle East may not be what they seem, and it could be for ulterior motives. But I'll have to leave it at that, though, so that way we don't make any crazy claims on the air, though. But he also enjoys having a nice taco dinner on Tuesday, which is always a good change up from the regular. Also, he does like to go to the gym and avoid having a wimp out Wednesday. And also, occasionally he gets a little feisty on Thursday and likes to threaten them again. And then fake peace talks on Friday.
Oh, the peace talk is only hours away, folks. I mean, we literally heard that yesterday. No joke. And now today they're saying they're going to bomb everyone in the Strait of Hormuz in an official letter given to everyone in the area that would need to know. So I would think at this point, folks, if you have a pretty negative outlook of how this has been handled just due to the insanity of it all, I mean, really, you're not that far-fetched. I mean, honestly, folks, I've never seen anything this mismanaged in my life. And I came from Alabama, folks. The government in Alabama is inherently dysfunctional at every level. And so if I'm saying that it looks confused and disjointed, believe me, it's confused and extremely disjointed. There's literally no sense to be made out of this whole thing at this point. So I thank you incredibly for that massive support, Howard Mendelson.
Peace and blessings for everybody in the building. Make sure you please hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. We are watching breaking news. The USA has been ordered, to blockade. I mean, it's a lot going on. The wounded head I believe Trump is a part. Now, this might sound crazy, right? Well, I'm about to say y'all might disagree, but I honestly believe that Trump is prophecy. I believe what they talking about in the Bible that will rule. For those who don't know, when they talk about a lady standing in the deep waters that's talking about in the Bible, I believe that's America. And y'all remember the part where it talks about the wounded head has been healed in the Bible? I believe that's Trump. Who got shot in the head? Well, in the ear. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. But y'all sit back and listen. And if you're new to the channel, please support. All I ask is you to hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, because that's the only way you can participate in the chat. And we need all the support. If you ain't hitting the like button and you're watching, you a hater. I call it how I see it, man. You know what I'm saying? Just don't watch for nothing. But even if you don't like me, at least hit the like button. I ain't begging. I'm just asking for your free support that don't cost nothing but a little bit of energy by using your finger and tapping that like button. It's just that easy. You know what I'm saying? But sit back and relax and enjoy.
Helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running and make this thing possible. And I would have to say that your frustrations are not unfounded. I too am quite frustrated by the situation. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. And we are on to the final question of this segment, and then we're going to be getting on into the rest of the news that we have from around the world. And so what do we got?
All right, so the last one here before we get back to the news goes to Father Avery Daniel. And thank you very much for that $100 support as well. And a huge shout out to you, Avery, for once again supporting the channel in such a big way. We do appreciate that. He said, could it make sense that the president's post was basically his final demand and the only thing he'd be willing to sign if he got his demands first? In the context of the NAV sent notice about the Strait of Hormuz, might we presume his answer is nah? And thanks for everything. LTLSA for the Costco chicken.
And a huge thanks to you for support in the Costco Chicken Fund. And there is a possibility that that could be the case. But the thing is about the public statements, though, is that generally they don't they don't really do a lot for negotiation's sake, because negotiations are actually supposed to be done between our diplomatic team and their diplomatic team. Usually when terms are announced to the public, that's usually looked at in diplomatic circles poorly and could end up jeopardizing or completely derailing talks. If he wanted those terms, he could just tell his diplomatic team that that's what he wants, and then they present that to the Iranians, and the Iranians get back to them with a yes or no answer. But him always going to Truth Social and putting it out there for the whole public to see isn't really for the benefit of the negotiations. That's more so for the benefit of public image, to try and make it look a certain way to the U.S. public when it could be going entirely different in the background in the actual negotiating channels, for good or for bad. So I would say that it could be his final demand. I mean, that's not out of the question, but generally final demands are supposed to be conveyed directly to the diplomatic team that we're talking to, and that certainly isn't the way to directly convey it to them, because that's basically putting it on blast for the whole world, and that usually never goes well. That's usually how you end up scaring a diplomatic team and making them back off and say no to absolutely everything, and they'd rather go to war at this point than anything, because we're showing bad faith actions on our end. And it doesn't sound like bad faith to some people, because some people go, well, it's not bad faith to do that. Well, in the diplomatic world, it certainly is, because you're not supposed to go and start talking about sensitive details for the larger part of the ongoing deal or what your terms are at that very moment, and then tell the whole public before you tell them. Now there's a lot of nuance with that. Like, for example, when you go in negotiations, it's obvious that you should tell the US public exactly what you're going for. But then once you get into the talks, you generally give it some sensitivity and don't end up making any publicized statements to say, I'm just going to let the talks take their course. We're talking to them. We're trying to figure it out. And once we get a yes or no answer, we're going to tell the public what we have and what we're going to be working off of from here. So if they say no, say the talks have failed, we have to go back to war, it's a necessity at this point for these reasons. Yeah. Or if there was a deal, you come out and say, we have been able to achieve a deal, and this is the finalized one that we're signing right here.
Well, remember, by the way, the U.S. isn't directly talking with Iran. It's all going through Pakistan still, because the Iranians won't get in the same room as the U.S. Diplomats. They still won't. So we don't really know what the Iranians are thinking. Like, there's a lot to be said for in-person negotiations. You can pick up on body language. You can pick up on their tone and things like that. Right now, we're playing the tag game with the diplomats in Pakistan, and they keep shuttling stuff back and forth to Iran. So, I mean, that's already not a great sign. We're having to use a third party like that to shuttle messages back and forth. And also, I mean, we're not even negotiating with the leader of the country. The leader, Mujtaba, if he's even the leader at this point, is holed up in a bunker and won't come out.
Yeah, and also on top of that, we think he's a figurehead. We think it's an IRGC council running the country at this point. But regardless, though, to answer your question, the president's public statements really don't do anything at all to benefit, progress, or create any sort of finalized conclusion to peace talks. If anything, they're jeopardizing peace talks every time a statement's made to the public. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running and making this thing a possibility, because it's thanks to your support that we're able to make this channel possible day in and day out, and we're hugely appreciative of that. And so with that, it is time for us to get on into the rest of our news. And before we move on, folks, we got the age-old question: how do you know what the president knows? I mean, we don't, but we generally make our publicized ideas here on air, and it looks like we're almost right all the time. So, generally we have a pretty good idea of what's going on. But moving us on out of that, it is time for us to get on down into Cuba, because there's a little bit of an update that came out from Cuba today. Apparently, a little meeting was had in Guantanamo Bay between some Cuban military officers and some top U.S. officials, although I don't really think...
I said, oh, shit. They're meeting in Guantanamo Bay. That's not good.
I heard that they used enhanced negotiation tactics on them. It was fun things, like waterboarding near the beach and things like that, things that we all do in our free time. But we also were able to hear that
the Cubans will behave or they'll get the hose again. I'll get in the stress position.
Man, they said the torture will continue until morale improves. It's like, man, honestly, that's a tough negotiating stance. But outside of that, the commander of U.S. Southern Command, General Donovan, apparently was at the meeting with senior Cuban military leaders at the perimeter of Guantanamo Bay. At least that's what we're hearing from Phil Stewart's sources that came out on Twitter. So the meeting was held somewhere in Guantanamo Bay. We don't really know exactly where. You can actually see the detention center at Guantanamo Bay right down here. You can also see more of it right over here. there's more of it all through this area. And then there's this little area down here that's also Camp Justice. This is also another part of the detention facility. I think you see some of the U.S. naval stations here and all of the other additional facilities. The rest of it is basically just a large perimeter. You can actually see the Cuban-U.S. perimeter right here that skirts around the territory or recognized border of Guantanamo Bay that the U.S. controls in the rest of communist Cuba. And we understand the meeting was held within this area. We don't know what building or any other further details or what came out of this meeting even, but there was a meeting. That's all we can say at this point. We'll have to see how America is against Cuba here in the future, because that might give us an indication as to how this went today. Moving us on out of that, we also were able to hear in Washington, D.C. today that apparently the U.S. Treasury extended until June 27th the license allowing transactions tied to the sale of Russia's Lukoil international assets. The company previously announced plans to sell foreign holdings after Washington imposed sanctions. So we are hearing that there was a little extension on some licenses that were previously not allowed under sanctions. That's interesting. In the middle.
Yes. It's like the Americans are working against the Ukrainians' goals to bring the Russian oil industry down. It's almost like they're trying to counteract it. That's kind of a strange thing to do right there, considering that Ukraine's hitting refineries for the sole purpose of bankrupting those companies. That way Russia can't fund its war. That's a very strange.
But the loophole, we let them sell their foreign holdings to give them tens of billions of dollars and offset years of Ukrainian damage that's happened to these companies financially.
That's very strange.
A little bit odd. Wouldn't y'all say? I think so. I think we all kind of catching on real nice like these days. But moving us on out of that, the Ukrainians did conduct another major drone attack on the Russian Federation overnight. One of the main targets that was hit off the bat was Taganrog. We did get to see some air defense fire in Taganrog in this clip.
Oh, damn.
Oh, bleh.
Oh, whoa. It's flocks of air defense.
Man, they better hope those proximity fuses are working, because I wouldn't want one of those landing in my living room.
It's flocks of air defense. They're moving for the winter.
Car alarms going off. It's hell on earth in Taganrog again. There was also a confirmed ground explosion in Taganrog in that clip as well. Looks to be a dead-on hit.
Whoa, somebody's celebrating the streets. Someone out there is vodka filled.
Man, someone said, "At the Babadi!" It's like, yes, it's victory day. Yay! It's like, yes, victory. Bleh. In the middle of the 29th of May. That's, only, 3 weeks off, but whatever. Moving us on out of that, the Volgograd refinery is on fire and burning profusely. Here's another picture of it that came out from the night. It's still burning at the moment right now. Infrared satellites show that there were major fires on the facility. We also got to confirm that way out in the middle, the literal middle of nowhere near Ustrium, which is this little village right here, which I bet looks ungodly. They don't even have street view. This place is so bad off, it doesn't even have a street view. Maybe, what the, we can go to the village down here, boy. So this is the nearby village and what it looks like?
Yes, it's like they built this on the sewer pit.
Yeah, I think they call this a cesspit. But this surely looks like the place that the first Borat movies showed Borat leaving from Kazakhstan to come to America. Kind of the same sort of stuff. Let me go get that. Borat Village. Let me go show you all this. Because... oh, yeah, here we go. Let me... So, this is literally Borat Village. Like no joke. Looks just like it. Or this one right here.
Close.
Yeah, it's like insanely close. It looks just like this place. So down near Borat Village in the Perm region, this happened. I'm not going to explain any farther. This happened.
Oh, permanent damage.
Уши закрывай, ложись.
He said that's bad, Pasha. That's bad. Don't look.
He said, "Oh, My money. Like it's the vodka stash. It's the Russian National Strategic Vodka Reserve that just blew up out there. We have no clue what blew up. It was near to the town of this Ustrim. But when you look around Ustrim, there's nothing there. Like there's literally nothing around here. So I'm very much confused as to what the hell actually blew up, because there's no Grau arsenal here or any other larger ammo dumps. So it's a bit of a mystery as to what the hell blew up around Ustream. So, we'll find out eventually, or maybe not. But it was one hell of an explosion. That cannot be understated generally. So moving us on out of that little bit of news in the far reaches of the Ural Mountains, we also were able to see, moving us on and finally into the front lines in Ukraine, that the Ukrainian armed forces have been working hard today. In the midst of all this, though, there has been some unfortunate statements. For one, we did get to hear that the Ukrainians emphasized that the Ukrainians should not ignore air raid sirens during the next 2 days, especially in Kyiv, as they believe there's going to be another major attack within the next 48 hours. We've already seen that a large amount of the citizens of Kyiv have already started taking to the subway shelters below and have started setting up camping tents to be able to give themselves a little bit of privacy and live out of the metro, to be able to try and stay safe from any incoming Russian attacks that are going to be occurring over the next few days. We've also been able to hear additionally outside of this that the Ukrainians have been reporting an attack on a Turkish vessel, the Turkish-owned cargo ship Ant, that was hit with a UAV as it was sailing from an Odessa region port to Turkey under the Vanuatuan flag. A fire broke out after the hit, and 2 wounded crew members were evacuated by the Ukrainian Navy. We could see the damage to the top of the superstructure there, and the paint had been burned off from the heat of the fire. We can also see firefighting efforts underway by the Ukrainian Navy, and we can also see additional pictures of the inflicted site and the damaged areas of the vessel that have been hit directly by a Russian drone. We also have been able to report that within the area of the Kherson region, Ukraine has started to work on a brand new drone innovation, which we'll have to mute the music for, but they're apparently launching FPV drones off of the booms of Magura drones, naval drones, to be able to try and get them into areas that are hard to reach for Ukrainian drones, and to also add a little bit of concealment and stealth to these drone operations as well. We can actually see that boom extending right here off the Magura. We now see them launching their drones. Fly, baby, fly! It's going to go find some Russians. Blow them up. Real nice like. Honestly, a pretty wild innovation. But moving us on out of this whole area of the sea, we now have to move to the most important part of Ukraine that we've seen so far that's unfolding in the war, which is the Southern Front. Many people have been starting to hear that the Southern Front isn't going well. And we even got to hear today that, according to some analysts in the Institute of the Study of War, they said the character of the war is shifting in favor of Ukrainian forces, at least for now. So it does appear that many people, including the Institute for the Study of War, are seeing that the tides are shifting back into Ukraine's favor, and not for any lack of a reason. Fuel shortages are gripping the entirety of Crimea and most of the Southern Front. Fuel queues are now extending well over a mile at most gas stations, as fuel is physically unavailable in most areas of the Southern Front of occupied Kherson Zap.
Please hit the like button. And please support the platform by subscribing to participate in the chat. And I want to hear all your opinions of what you think. Please comment in the chat and give your opinion. Please hit the like button to support the platform. The more you hit the like button, it gets the platform further out into the algorithm. So we definitely need your support, and we definitely trying to get monetized over here, working on the hours, got enough subscribers, and please join the family. Please subscribe and give your opinion, and don't forget to hit the like button. Peace.
And Crimea.
This is getting pretty bad. These lines are getting longer and longer. I think you might have the video coming up here soon, but all the signs in Crimea, most of their gas stations have literal zeros on the board, like for the price of the gasoline per gallon or per liter, whatever they sell it in. And it's really spreading fast across the entire Crimea area.
I would have to agree. It really is. I sadly don't have that post. I had to cut it down for like brevity's sake, so I just had that one clip to show it. But most gas stations in Crimea and also all the way up to Melitopol quite literally have no fuel left to sell, which is becoming a desperate situation for the Russian army, which uses that fuel, and also the Russian civilians as well, which would also use that fuel. Within the Sevastopol area, we also were able to confirm that the Russian airfields of Katya and Belbek were attacked by the Ukrainian armed forces today, but we haven't been able to get video and picture evidence of the damage reports yet. Additionally, we also saw that it appears that the oil depot in Feodosia was hit again, as its large glowing burning orb came from the city after a Ukrainian drone attack tonight, which appears to be showing that that oil depot has been hit again and is on fire. Now, moving us on, before we get to the rest of the Southern Front, I do have to touch on a couple of extra things that happened in the Krasnodar Oblast. For one, it does appear that Russian forces in the area of this FSB Electronic Intelligence Center were blown to smithereens. Apparently, a load of Ukrainian drones hit this facility. This is what it looked like before the attack, and this is what it looked like after the attack.
Whoa, jeez. I would say the FSB got jacked up right there. They didn't see that coming.
Man. Hey, yo, bro, they did not see that coming. Bro, I was just trying to come up with a sound effect to get this thing moving. Yeah, like, honestly, well, outside of throwing Matthew off with that, because I literally just did that with no context.
The AO usually means like something was dirty that was said. I was like, how the hell could this be like construed as nasty? I'm like, they didn't see it coming. Like, I mean, what the hell?
Man, bro, I was like sitting there, man. I was like, oh, what do I say to like get my monologue moving on? I was like, hey, yo, and then you went, oh, bro. I was like, damn. I was like, that was the wrong one to use because it really does mean that. But most of the FSB Electronic Intelligence Center was completely destroyed. So quite an interesting thing to see. And of course, good to know that the Ukrainians are still working their magic on the FSB. They just never see the Ukrainian forces coming at all, which kind of is their whole job. They're the intelligence force. We also got to see that down in Novorossiysk, we have gotten full-blown confirmation that the Admiral Essen has been schmacked heavily. It was on the starboard side of the vessel, directly near to the superstructure. We actually have some footage of this attack. We've never seen this footage before, and it just came out today. I'm going to skip forward to the part where the drone comes right in onto the side of the Essen, right there. There's the drone, and we're just going to watch these last few seconds of the clip to show you all the hit on the direct side, the starboard side of the bridge of the Admiral Essen. There it is, coming on in.
Oh my God.
Right to the mark. Oh!
Man, honestly, I'm more impressed by the sheer amount of waste of ammunition that's going on. They are like firing non-stop into this harbor. Like, back this footage up. Look at all these freaking bullets flying through the air, man. It's like, this is crazy.
They went insane.
Please hit the like button and please subscribe if you're new to the channel. The more you hit the like button, the more the platforms get further out into the algorithm. And if you like to comment or chat with you got to subscribe. Please become a subscriber. Join the family. Not my platform, our platform. Sit back and relax and enjoy the show.
Oh my God! And they were missing it all.
Damn, man, they getting hit shit with that. Man, they were firing like thousands of rounds in like just a mere matter of seconds. They didn't hit a damn thing.
Bro, honestly, man, like, I don't know where they send these Russian anti-air gunners to gunnery school, but they need to shut that gunnery school down and find a better one, because what's even more interesting is knowing how much AA fire there was. When you look at the video from the Ukrainian drone coming in, do you notice something interesting, Matthew, about what they're seeing?
What is it?
The lack of bullets that are overshooting, everyone's undershooting the drone. There's literally no bullets in the Ukrainian POV from the drone that are flying in front of it. Apparently, all of the Russians must be aiming their iron sights or their scope directly onto the drone, and because they're doing that, they're not leading the target enough to hit it, so all of their bullets are flying behind the drone, which is flying short, and none of them were ever flying in front of the drone. I mean, look at the view up there in the top right. There's literally not a damn tracer or a bullet to be seen flying in front of the camera. So everybody was undershooting this drone.
I think they're just doing this to look busy, honestly, so that way they don't get in trouble. I think they're just firing randomly just to say that they did something, but they know they're not going to hit it, I guess. Also, I see Mark Hooper and a couple others saying, what are those blue streaks in the sky? Those are the spotlights, and then you put a filter over the lens of the spotlight so it looks like that. Are those, those aren't lasers, are they?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think they are. I think they're normal spotlights, and they're simply showing up like that because of a filter.
Man, honestly, also someone said something funny in this. Sound came immediately at impact. I would doubt that because one Mississippi, so almost 2 seconds from impact to sound seems to be a little off to me. It's a real video, by the way, because the Admiral Essen, you can see it on satellite. It's charred on the starboard side, so it's not really light. The video is fake, But outside of that, what a hit. I mean, really something else. Also, by the way, if y'all are wondering what the Admiral Essen looks like up close, that's the Admiral Essen in full glory at sea.
Yeah, it was the Admiral Essen. Now it's got a big scratch on the side, a good dent. Now to put down the ship facts.
Man, they're gonna sit there and call this thing the Admiral Pleasant because that be looking splendid these days.
Somebody's gonna come along and be like, I would take it off your hands, but it's had an ugly ship facts. It's had a wreck. And they're gonna be like, no wreck, just a little scratch, that's all.
But could we take it for the test drive? No. We sell as is, so you have to buy it at the counter or walk away.
It has the unintended feature of turning into a submarine if you're not careful.
I can already see who's going to buy this.
Some random Pakistan. India could buy this. I could see that.
Bro, they're going to buy this and then find out they were scammed. You're going to hear Modi yelling, "We will find Tarak and punish."
No. They'll buy this because the Indian military, we're going to get shit for this, by the way, because the Indian people get very upset when we talk about their military. But do you remember when they left the hatch open on the submarine and it flooded? Because
yeah.
They're going to end up leaving a port or a bilge port or something open on the ship. They're going to drive this thing and it's going to slowly start sinking into the water deeper and deeper. They're going to be like, "What's going on?" And it's going to keep going down until it finally sinks.
Oh man, no, better yet, man, you know what they would do? They would go into the engine room and they would pile a whole bunch of random shit on the engines and forget about it or something, and then the engine would explode and they'd have to abandon ship because the fire got out of control. That's probably what would happen.
Man, I cracked myself up with that. I almost forgot completely about the Indian Navy, literally with their submarine. They forgot to close a hatch on their submarine, so they literally flooded the hell out of their submarine. I can't remember if people drowned in the submarine or what happened, but it was so bad, though, that it made the news that the Indian Navy had literally left a whole hatch open on the submarine, and then they just flooded the damn thing.
Let me see here.
It's how's that even possible? It's I don't even understand how the hell that's possible.
In January of 2018, it was reported that an aft hatch on the submarine was left open by mistake while the submarine was docked in 2017, leading to saltwater flooding the propulsion compartment, rendering the submarine inoperative for 10 months while the corroded pipes were replaced. The Indian Ministry of Defense refused to comment on the allegation, claiming it would be a breach of national security, which is basically admitting that it happened, but they didn't want to admit that it actually happened because it's embarrassing. But this is the submarine. At least right here, it's basically a modified Kilo for the larger part that had the incident.
Yeah, it's just crazy right there. Honestly, when that India-Pakistan war was going, I've seen stuff that I've never seen before, mistake-wise, happening in that war that we'll probably never see again.
Man, someone, though, out there, man, who's thinking about this whole deal of, refurbishing a ship to look fine, although it's been messed up. It's North Korea, bro. Kim Jong-un's fat ass is sagging the whole bench down, smoking on a cigarette, looked over and said, first time? It's it's first time for the Russians. They're going to have to figure out how to make this thing look somewhat operational. Honestly, man, the Vostochny Rayon's basically a junkyard at this point. They have that half-sunken Kilo class still stuck in there. Now they got the burnt-up remains of the Admiral Essen sitting on the other side of the wharf. Before the end of the war, it's literally just going to be a junkyard of abandoned and mostly destroyed ships.
Honestly, it probably will be before long. And the crazy part is it's because Ukraine doesn't even have a navy.
Man, Zelensky said,
We may not have a navy, but call us a dolphin because this be resilient. Like blew the air.
I guess we can call the Russians Old Navy. They're not selling clothes, but they're sinking ships.
You know something? The Russian Navy's looking real good right now. Hey, because we're putting all of that shit on it. Like, oh, man.
Well, I'm telling you, man, the Russian Navy, it's not going to last that much longer.
Yeah, I agree.
But moving aside out of that whole news in the Vostochny Raion, we also get to see that down in the Mariupol area on the M14, things are still going desperately. Russians cry out from the depths of the front. Berdyansk is also under attack. Intensive attacks by enemy on our logistics have reached the shores of the Azov. Attacks by Ukrainian formations with Hornet drones are also taking place on the Berdyansk area. The directed distance to Kharkiv is 95 kilometers. So the operators of the armed forces of Ukraine have no particular problems with overcoming this distance, given a maximum range of up to 145. Now, from the point of view of the consequences, the situation is critical, sire. Since logistics have been suffering for almost a month, this affects the delivery of products not only to the rear, but also the front line. Damn, the Russians are getting in on the front and the rear. I tell you, it's a tough time for them down there. We also got to see that on the highway today, there was still more carnage to be seen that is fresh. Here in this clip, we got to see a truck almost careen off the road near to a smoldering wreck of another truck. Check this out. Look at this truck up here. It's going to go any second now. Oh, yeah.
That's not a good sign.
Oh, it's the devil.
Oh, the devil's in here. Yeah, look at those. Satan Trucking Incorporated.
Oh, another cooked out fuel truck. Oh, they got that music now. Special equipment. And another
Oh, look at that. It was at this point he knew he should have turned around, but he kept going anyway because he balls like that.
Man, he real like that. We also got another clip, apparently letting us hear that Russian authorities have warned against non-essential travel on the M14 highway after reporting remote mining attacks near the Berdyansk area. Officials said drones deployed motion-triggered explosives targeting transport routes. To let y'all know, they're little mines. They just dropped them in large numbers by a Ukrainian drone flying overhead. And they lay on the road, and whenever anything drives by, they explode. That's basically what they are. So now the Ukrainians are literally mining the roadways back there, which is getting the situation even more dire for Russia, because if they somehow protect against the drones, they are definitely not going to protect against the mines that they generally aren't going to see until they're right up on top of them. We also got another clip of more trucks burning. Here's one right here. Damn.
Oh, wow. They're about to have a head-on collision, too. That was almost a disaster.
Man, he's flooring it now.
He said, I think it's dangerous around here. I shouldn't be out here. Florida, Ivan, Florida. Get out of here. Come on, quick.
Man, meanwhile, some Ukrainian drone operator, hey, look, he's flooring it. He must be trying to run because he's got vital supplies. Hit them. Like, bro, it's like, man, yeah, I would go nice and slow. I would follow the speed limit because now the speed limit's enforced by drones. We also got to see some kamikaze drones targeting the Russians near Berdyansk. The first one did miss. The second one, though, didn't. Oh, no.
Oh, a dud. Look at that.
They got lucky. Quick, everyone, back to the Kamaz. Hey, there's another one coming, you idiot.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
This one looks mean. Oh, no.
Style on him, yo.
Oh, man. He wasted all of his ammunition. Oh, they sound defeated. Oh, he's mad.
He's crashing out already.
He's crashed out.
Bro, I also like how when the second one came in, bro, it was kind of styling him. You know, it was kind of doing like a little wiggle with the wings and everything. Look at it. It's like shimmying around and stuff.
That is crazy. That's apparently the type of drone that they're using right there to hit behind the lines, apparently.
Hold up. I got to go pull this up really quickly, man, because... You know, this is reminding me of something. You know when this Kamaz blew up right here? Like, watch it here when it blows up. like comes apart in a whole bunch of pieces. It reminds me of one of those cartoon cars, you know, where they like slam the door and then like the whole thing falls apart, you know, like a car like that.
Yeah, kind of does, actually.
Bro, they hit it, and like the headlights went flying out, and the radiator went out the front, and the tarpaulin went flying in every direction. I mean, watch this, folks. It's literally like a cartoon car coming apart.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, this is the strike right here in Berdyansk that literally inspired that post of the Russians freaking out that you read off earlier. This is the exact attack that inspired that post by the Russians.
Really?
Yeah, this is it right here. This is what literally, it might have been one of the guys from this unit right here that's driving the truck that got hit. They're the ones who got on Telegram, apparently started yapping.
Maybe it was that guy crashing out in the background.
Chopping it up. This is Royal News TV. Please hit the like button if you're new to the channel. And if you would like to participate, drop a comment in the chat. You must please subscribe. Please subscribe, and please hit the like button, because the more you hit the like button, it pushes the content farther out into the algorithm where everybody can tap in. And please, we need your support. We need your participation. So please subscribe and please hit the like button. Help us out. Bless.
One.
Yeah, it could have been him. He sounds like he could have gone on Yelp or started typing up a bad review.
And then we heard that he went off to the psychiatric facilities after that because the FSB said he wasn't mentally there. We also got to see another clip of Russian logistics getting hit by the Luftwaffe. Geschlagen Lightman. But anyways, here's the clip. Look, it's a little fuel truck. It's a cute one, too. It's like a little short bed one. You know, the Luftwaffe, folks, they really got a keen eye for those Russians.
It's really just the German Air Force, really.
Well, maybe. But coming on in now.
Probably the reason they named it that and used all that symbology right there is they were trying to get the Taurus missile from Germany, but I think they didn't use the right messaging.
I don't think they did. But they did get the truck. Well, that's the end of that clip. Looks like a dead-on hit. Lastly, the Russians did start to move in some Tor air defense systems into the area in larger numbers, you know, which means they moved like 4 of them into the area of the whole southern front to try and deal with the drones and stop them from getting to the highway. The drones ended up targeting them and blowing them up before they could even stop the drones. So most of the Tors were destroyed outright within the first days that they made it to the southern front. Right now, a lot of people are looking at the situation. They're starting to talk about how screwed the Russians are. Matthew, how many people think that the Russians are screwed? And how screwed do you think they are as well?
Okay, so specifically, Ukraine has begun mining Russia's logistics routes, and this comes on top of the drone attacks that Russia's not able to defend against, which is prompting the Russians to freak out worse than ever. They're now openly demanding that Putin fix the situation for them, and they're being left to their own devices, by the way. Also, Tiger Stack said in the live chat, he said, "Where's the Zebra truck?" I hope you have that, by the way, because the Russians are trying to fix the problem in their own creative methods, but if you could grab that, by the way, they're trying to fix their problem in their own creative method, and they're coming up with some pretty sad stuff. There it is right here. This is what the Russians are coming up with because Putin won't help them. So they're trying to make their trucks invisible to the drones. So they said, let's make it in a zebra color, because zebras blend in with the environment inside of Ukraine with the greenery. Black and white would blend in perfect. So plot twist, it didn't blend in perfect. But back to the question, though. Russia is now closing its highways after Ukraine has begun dropping mines from their drones that are motion activated on the sides of their highways. So what are your thoughts? It looks like 79% said that's great, logistics are screwed, 7% said that's bad and endangers civilians, and 6% said I'm 50-50 on this one. So in this case, we have literally limitless video evidence that the Russian military has basically taken over the highways behind the lines and the rear lines of occupied Ukrainian territory, and they're being used largely for military logistics transport. So that makes them valid military targets. There may be civilians that use the highway from time to time, but here's the catch, though. In war, you might want to steer clear of where the military's at. So if the civilians don't want to get hit, they might want to get off the military target, which is the highway. They might want to use the back roads. That might be better. So I would say that it's a good move. Logistics are pretty much screwed at this point. Between the drone attacks and the mines, I'm not sure how Russia's going to overcome that. Ukraine's really cornering them at this point. But Enforcer, what say you?
Hey, comrade, I've got a great idea how to conceal against drones. What is your idea, Ivan? Well, what if we took that razzle-dazzle camouflage that some U.S. warships had in the Second World War, and we put them on our supply trucks, driving on the highway? Well, what is the idea of them? Well, at sea, the idea was that painting up a ship like this would break apart its pattern and make it hard to tell what direction and speed it was traveling in. So, I'm thinking, what if we paint this shit up to look like this in the middle of a green environment in the summer? And clearly a drone will be able to tell that it's moving down the highway at a specific speed because they're guiding it all the way into its target. That's a great idea, Vadim. Paint it black and white.
It's like, where the hell did they even get all that paint from? It's like, that's a hell of a lot of paint they used in this truck. And also, can you imagine how long it took them to do this right here? It probably took them like a whole off. Like, I'd imagine unless they were working around the clock. They could have been like, you never know, the command and hold them at gunpoint or something, saying, paint the zebra pattern, damn it. And they were like, okay, we'll get it done in 24 hours. It's like, I think they made their situation worse. This thing's going to stand out like a sore thumb. Like, can you imagine that, seeing that from a drone? This thing's like a freaking beacon. Here I am. It's like, this thing is very visible.
Man, also on top of that, it's like, this thing, I'm guessing it really is supposed to be the razzle-dazzle camo. This thing works because it would kind of throw off a submarine commander on the speed at which the ship was traveling, because they didn't really have because it was a camouflage pattern that's really confusing to the eye. It would kind of make it a little bit more difficult to fire off a torpedo in theory. But the problem with that idea on a truck in the modern day is that a drone isn't moving in a kinetic line at a fixed rate of speed to the target like a torpedo. The drone can just slow down and speed up and then turn left and right to maneuver to hit the truck. So it's not like this is doing anyone any good. I mean, it's literally just wasting paint and time to get the truck blown up anyways, and now it just looks like a zebra. It was completely pointless. So I would have to say, folks, this thing's horrendous, and this is going to do nothing. Russian logistics are done for at this point, without a shadow of a doubt. But moving us on out of this news in the southern front, it is time for us to get to the rest of what we have from around the region today. Moving us on up into our location unknowns, we did get to see this one Buhanka get blown up that had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 independent electronic jammers on top, still blown up.
That's crazy. They still couldn't pull it off. Honestly, I didn't think those were antennas. At first, I thought they were some type of like drone catcher or something like that, designed to hit the drone or to not make it hit the Buhanka. I couldn't tell. That's really crazy. They couldn't take it out even with all those antennas.
Man, they had 11. They were just too short of a baker's dozen of electronic warfare antennas. Still couldn't stop a drone. Also, on top of that, why in the world does this Buhanka have a lazy eye where one headlight's half open and the other one's full open?
Honestly, this is the van that those schizophrenics talk about, pull up outside their place when the government's watching and stuff, is one with antennas on it like this, like the FBI truck. This is the one that they talk about. They say the FBI's outside and they'll show a picture of a truck looking like that. It's like that's what they think of. The schizophrenics are having a frenzy right now.
Man, bro, they losing it on Gaw. We also got another bit of news in our casualty report over the past 24 hours. Oh, wait a minute. What the hell? That's not the casualty report. Hold up. Let me go to Twitter, folks, because weirdly enough, that reposted from the Verkrauss front. I don't know why, because I copied the casualty report from Kyiv Independent today and put it there, and apparently it was the wrong link that was put there. That's odd, folks. That's peculiar. But here we are. Here's the casualty report. No Bobcats.
Oh, no, I can't believe it. How's this possible? They're hitting so many special equipments behind the lines. I couldn't have a special loss report? Come on now.
Man, it is a tragedy. And according to Ms. Deasy, keeper of the records, 324 auto and fuel tanks is the 7th highest daily loss, and the war total has exceeded 100,000. Many totals today for categories including artillery, MLRS, air defense, and special equipment exceed recent months. And over the past 24 hours, we have been able to confirm that 960 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed, along with 11 APCs, 324 supply trucks, 2 main battle tanks, 28 artillery pieces, 1,750 drones, 2 MLRSs, and that was it. Still a pretty decent day, just no Bobcats, which is kind of a shame. Moving us on out of that, we've also been able to see throughout the rest of the front, moving us on down and into the affected areas, that around the area of Konstantinivka, Ukrainian soldiers had to evade Russian artillery fire today.
Десь оптика круже. Хуй, тихо я подивлюсь.
We see him moving out into the street to try and get a better look down at. And then they can hear artillery possibly coming in, and it explodes right next to him.
God. Oh my gosh.
And they're back into shelter.
Damn. I wonder if that guy's okay. I didn't know you could survive that close to a shell hitting.
They think it's a mortar shell. I think it's a mortar shell as well. But yeah, I mean, that's still crazy, regardless of it being a mortar shell or not. That was a pretty big explosion. I mean, right next to them, and somehow none of them got ended by the shrapnel coming out of that.
Yeah, that's wild. I can only imagine. Hopefully that guy doesn't have like internal bleeding or something like that, because that shockwave from that close is probably horrendous.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it sounded like the wind was knocked out when he got back up. I mean, listen to him. Like, here it comes right when he gets up right here.
Oh,
yes, listen to that. It sounded like he got the wind knocked out of him from it. But I mean, that's a pretty good outcome. He could have been killed.
Yeah, I guess better he survived. That was a close call.
Man, that was insane, honestly. A really close call. We also got to see the Ukrainians making their way into the city in an M113 today as well, also showing the venture into the city after we just saw what it was like to be on the front at the city. So here's the M113 making its way in, getting hit by a myriad of drones. We can then see the Ukrainians medically evacuating some of their own. The M113 still getting hit in the midst of the medical evacuations. And then we get to see the full clip. Believe it or not, this is the Ukrainian police. We see them here showing off some of the wounds that some of their soldiers have suffered, and them being put into a pre-assembly area for medical evacuation. And now we see the M113 on its way in to get the wounded and evacuate them from the front.
Is that the Ukrainian vehicle right there? Like a Russian creation.
Yeah, that's a Ukrainian vehicle. That's a U.S. provided M113 that they've outfitted.
Wow, it's like, oh, that's it right there too?
Yeah, that's it.
That's wild. That thing's like they put like spiderweb bush like objects all over it.
Apparently they kind of work from what we can tell, because the M113 is kind of dealing with this exceedingly well. Now we can see that they medically evacuated them to a hospital in the rear line, and they were able to receive medical treatment for their wounds. But a pretty wild clip just showing the venture into Konstantinivka to pick up the wounded, and also the artillery that's raining around or down on the city as the Ukrainians continue to defend the region. We've also been able to see on the Pokrovsk front as well, Russian forces getting hit within this area, which was the clip that was in the stay of the casualty report in the location unknowns. The 59th Brigade has been targeting and destroying Russian vehicles and personnel to a high rate within this area, and have been continuing to slow the Russian advance as a result of the significant losses. Or about ATVs. Oh, a lot. Oh my God, that was a terrible Lotta.
That's a chop shop Lotta right there. They chopped off the rear of it. Oh, I didn't think that was a Lotta. That was a thing. Oh, look at this. There's another Lotta getting hit.
Man, this is like a whole Rodnik section just in what's getting blown up. I mean, there's like 6 abominations in that clip. We also got to see down in the Donetsk area, the Russians using a Wild Hornet for drone defense, although it's kind of like their version of a Wild Hornet. But here it is. We've never seen one of these before, so this might be an innovation in Russian drone technology. Also, by the way, this was used by the Chechens, just to make that clear.
Oh, dang. Yeah, that's basically a direct ripoff of the Ukrainians' Hornet.
Damn, bro. Can that guy breathe well enough?
I'll tell you what, those Chechens, I'll tell you.
Man, I heard, folks, that this guy was selected as the #1 warrior because when they put him in hand-to-hand combat in an enclosed room, he apparently breathed all the air in, his opponent suffocated in there. I mean, dang. But anyways, moving us on out of that, we've also been able to see that down near the Novopavlivka front, a BM-21 Grad was also hit by the Ukrainians as well today. These are actually somewhat rarer losses. We don't hear of a lot of MLRSs getting hit on the regular, so seeing that some of the very few remaining 127mm Grads getting destroyed is a pretty nice sight to see.
by the way, just a piece of breaking news while we're watching this clip right here. Apparently, aircraft here in the United States was just suffered an attempted hijacking, apparently. And it looks like they squawked a code for the hijacking. But thankfully, it looks like they subdued the person. They said law enforcement, so it looks like the air marshal was on board, apparently subdued the guy before he was able to get into the cockpit. So they said it was a level 4 security incident. It was a flight from Chicago O'Hare to Minneapolis that diverted to Madison, Wisconsin, apparently. So it looks like, thankfully, they were able to stop the idiot, whoever it was trying to get to the cockpit. Apparently, the air marshal jumped into action.
What aircraft is that? Can we see that on flight radar right now?
Let me see if I have the code or the flight code here. Let me see if I can get this real quick. Let's see here. Hijacking. Let me see if I can get this real quick. Let's see here. So apparently, they're alleging that it was a United Airlines flight, 2005. So see if you can spot that. I'm not sure if it's going to be on transponder anymore, because it looks like it's already landed. It was diverted to Madison in Wisconsin. So it should be on the ground. So I'm not sure if the transponder is going to be on.
It looks like it isn't on because I had to go pull it up really quick. But let's see here. This is the one right here, actually. This is 29th of May. This is United Airlines Flight 2005. It was diverted to Madison. Let's take a look at that. Let's look at the playback here. So the aircraft went airborne, flew on out of Chicago O'Hare, made it to the area just near Beaver Dam, and then that's, I believe, when it squawked the emergency, because we can see it diverting rapidly to Madison, Wisconsin, and then landing there. So pretty interesting to see.
Does it say when they started squawking the 7500 code? It doesn't look like the flight radar replay has that.
Doesn't look like they do. I'm just assuming it's when they started to divert towards Madison, probably somewhere around this point.
Yeah, well, definitely a scary situation. Thankfully, these days, though, there's some pretty strong doors that they put on those cockpits, and also there's rules in place where one pilot has to do like a certain thing, like they have to bring the flight attendant if one of the pilots have to use the restroom and stuff like that, so that way the pilot's not left alone by himself in the cockpit. So there's a whole bunch of things in place to prevent that. Thankfully, there was an air marshal on board, because not every single flight has an air marshal, and sometimes they have them, sometimes they don't. So thankfully, there was one on this one. So I'll be curious to see what individual and what his connection was that was doing that. Was he a sleeper agent, or who was it?
Might have just been a nut, like there's a lot of crazy people who get on planes these days. I'm sure many of y'all have run into them on your flights. They just haven't tried to hijack the plane. But there's a lot of crazy people out there. It might have just been someone who was, insane, like that one person on that one video, that woman who was like, whatever that is back there, it isn't real. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, could have been someone like that maybe. But anyways, moving us on out of that interesting news that just happened here in the United States, it is time for us folks to move on and up into Kyiv to cover the speech from the President of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky, here on this day of 1556. And so, without further ado, here is the speech. Speech!
Шановні українці, українки, сьогодні кілька важливих речей. Перше, ми маємо інформацію від розвідки щодо підготовки Росією нового масованого удару. Будь ласка, зважайте на повітряні тривоги, бережіть життя. Наші служби оперативні, підготовлені, повітряні сили та інші захисники неба працюватимуть 24/7, як і завжди. Тематика ППО, необхідність і надалі допомагати Україні з захистом неба – це ключовий пріоритет наш. Вдячний кожному партнеру, всім лідерам, всім державам, які готові допомагати і хто повністю виконує домовленості. Програма Pearl має працювати, це стосується і Сполучених Штатів, і Європи. Кошти європейських партнерів та інших наших друзів ми акумулюємо, щоб купувати ракети, зокрема для Петріотів. І достатнє постачання залежить від Америки. Сподіваємось, що Україну будуть чути. Була сьогодні доповідь міністра закордонних справ Андрія Сибіги. Всі наші дипломатичні представники повинні зосередитись. Результати потрібні. Фактично, кожен день ми комунікуємо з тими партнерами, які можуть підтримати нас. Вчора дійсно хороше рішення зі Швецією. Сьогодні є рішення Японії, зокрема про Pearl. Ми готуємо ще нові рішення в Європі, щоб була наша власна європейська антибалістика. Наступними тижнями заплановані важливі зустрічі та перемовини щодо цього. Щойно Я говорив з президентом Румунії. Російський дрон ударив по житловому будинку в Румунії у ніч на цей день. Люди постраждали. Ми бажаємо найшвидшого одужання. Ми домовились з президентом, з Нікушором, що Україна підтримує Румунію в цій ситуації. І наші команди, наші військові, наші спеціалісти попрацюють над тим, щоб посилити захист неба. Підтримуючи одне одного зараз, ми робимо сильніше наші спільні позиції. Це дуже важливо. Була також тривала нарада з військовими, головнокомандувач Збройних сил Сирський та начальник Генштабу Гнатов. Обороняємось активно і важливо, що продовжуємо досягати наших цілей, передусім російської логістики та російської нафтової галузі. Все, що ускладнює для Росії ведення війни, допомагає набути мир. Пам'ятаємо, що нам потрібно, захищаємо Україну. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
And with that, that is the end of the speech from the President of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky, here on day 1556 of the news from around the world. And I've got to say, folks, that we are entirely honored and greatly appreciative of so many people being here with this channel and enjoying it over the course of this night. We have been able to run 2 hours and 10 minutes of news tonight, and 110,000 people have joined us over the course of those 2 hours, and 17,100 people were here at the peak. I've got to say that we're entirely honored and greatly appreciative to have had each and every single one of you all here tonight. And I have to say that I hope that our news coverage was good, sound, and our analysis was also of sound quality as well. I really hope so, because tonight, folks, I haven't said it through the whole show during the news, but I have been battling some pretty decent, like, nausea and dizziness. And so hopefully it hasn't really come through in my coverage or analysis or any of my statements, because it is really getting to me at this point right now. I don't know what it is. Like, it could be the weather. It could just be anything.
Man.
I don't know.
We're just tired of all this winning. Like, it's just so much winning, and we're sick of winning at this point. Like, it's making Andrew physically sick at this point. Like, top 25 in the nation. I mean, we just can't handle this.
I think it's the mind games that the president's playing on me that's like leading to the dizziness. I just can't. I can't get shot. Like, I've been spun around the foreign policy situation. I can't even, like, my brain isn't even thinking straight anymore.
Man, he didn't tell us the discombobulator was his mouth.
Bro, they had a megaphone on that drone over Venezuela. He's one of the greatest. People have been calling me up all over, and everyone down there went, duh. Like, and then they're like, go get him.
I gotta tell you that I'm always the best of those one-liners. Like, I'm always the best. They're telling me, they said, sir, you got to be a comedian, sir. I said, I can't do it. I'm too busy on YouTube reporting news. I'm a newsman. It's a news anchor. That's what they call it. It's like a ship. You need an anchor for that. You need to be able to put the anchor down and weigh anchor, they say. You weigh it every time to make sure it's the right weight. That's what they tell you, sir.
Man, bro, someone's about to come in here and go, the TS is strong with this. It's like, bro, like, it's like, man, honestly, I gotta say, folks, that, like, the phrase TDS is like the new false flag, a hot word of the day. Like, it's just like everybody wants to throw that out left and right. It's not like, honestly,
could you imagine being a grown man and saying TDS? Could you imagine that? It's like something a 10-year-old would say. He said, you have Matt derangement syndrome. That's what they call it. It sounds like a medical disorder, but it's a psychological one. It's psychological. It happens to be something that people are suffering from that are in a cult. That's what they say, sir. Sir. Independent thinking. They don't know what that is. It's not in Webster's. You can't look it up in Webster's. You just got to know what it is. They said, sir, Webster, sir.
The political stupid phrases have got to stop. It's like they have to stop. I'm so tired, folks, of hearing stupid political phrases like panicking and TDS and like SJW and shit. It's so old. Like, it's like, and it gets so overused. Like, literally everybody who's political, it's like they're like a baby. You know, it's like they're like, cuckoo gaga, genius, cuckoo gaga, genius. It's like so dumb. Like, it's like the stupidest thing. And instead of them ever having a legitimate argument, like a counter argument, they just go to that. It's like their little refuge. Kind of like how, like, let's see, what was it? Oh yeah. Like the one that we dealt with for the past 3 years when Biden was president was just people who would come in, and when we'd say like, we don't think this is a good move, they go MAGA. It's like no. It's like how about you actually come up with something mentally good instead of being brain dead? You know, like, I gotta say, folks, we need to fight a war in this country, like on an institutional level, against like brain dead stuff. People have got to start learning some critical thinking. It needs to start at the public education level. We've got to teach people how to use their brain. That's been a problem in this country. The standards need to be high. There needs to be no laxness on the rules. It is what it is. Kids are either going to learn to have some brains or the country is doomed. And there's going to be no in between. That's what I think.
Well, make the kids have good brains, so that way they can make sure that they're coming up to the right conclusions. You know, have to make sure that they're going to get their fruits and vegetables on a daily basis for lunch. Make sure you steer clear of snakes, kids. Don't pick up snakes by the tail and try to drag them out like they're a pet exhibition at the zoo. Don't do that.
We're going to war against fat and stupid kids, but not against the kids themselves, but whatever makes them fat and stupid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a couple of black racers on the front porch, and that ought to really fix the damn problem. Like, really, when you come to think of it, I don't really think that guy's done much of anything at this point to really try and fix that whole problem. He changed the gut-stuffing, calorie-inducing French fries from getting cooked in vegetable oils and how they get cooked in tallow, and it kind of really hasn't done a lot. Fries are still kind of unhealthy.
Something they didn't tell you in school when the last president came out and said Corn Pop was a bad dude. Corn Pop's not a bad dude. He was actually the first man to create cereal, Mr. Corn Pop. That's what he was. And they were fighting a war against Mr. Corn Pop while he was trying to save the children. That's why he thought he was a bad man, because he was a bad president.
I gotta be honest with you. One time when I was going down around Philadelphia back in the day when the Kennedys really had a name, I actually saw that Joe Biden guy, and he was sitting around. He was messing with this guy who had a big chain and some straight razors that were put in some rain barrels. And honestly, I got a couple of those. I thought it was interesting, and I caught myself with them, and I got rigor mortis. And basically, the moral of the story is, folks, if you see a rusty razor at the bottom of a rain barrel, you gotta try it out. You're really missing out.
Anyways, also someone said, "Do you have a voucher?" Sadly, I don't. I find that voice very hard to do. I tried to do it way back in the day off air to figure out if I could do it. I actually can't do that one. There's a couple of a Fauci.
A Fauci.
He had this.
I don't really know what he sounds like, really, to even imitate him.
He had this interesting way of speaking because he had this vocal issue thing, and so it made his voice very distinct. It was gravelly sounding, but I couldn't do it. I tried to do it, I just couldn't. It hurt my voice too much to try and imitate it. But I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, it's time for us to get on into the rest of the question.
Someone in the chat said, "This is just stupid." Well, hell, you ought to like it then.
I mean, isn't this top quality entertainment? I mean, shit, it's better than Fox and CNN.
I'm saying that they're pretty stupid. So I like the stupid content. Isn't that a like goes together? They say sir, like and like. They said opposites attract, sir. If you're smart, you should like stupid. Smart people don't like me. That's what they're telling me. I don't know why. I've never figured out why. I've been trying to best people on that issue, and they can't quite figure it out. We might need a committee on that one. But smart people like me. It's a strange thing. They must be stupid.
Honestly, they must be. It must be a real tragedy, honestly. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to get on into the questions. What do we got?
All right, so jumping into our super chat. Also, real quick, by the way, I had to put up a little brother versus brother poll right here because we love these polls right here. Who does the voice better? And I didn't specify the voice. I left that very ambiguous. Looking back at it, that was a bit of a blunder, but you can't fix errors in the past. Leave the past in the past. 63% said Matt and 37% said Andrew. So I'd assume most people were talking about the RFK one, I would assume, because that's the one that seems to get most people's attention, actually, for the most part. So I don't know why, but I will say this: I'm not one like I'm usually a humble person. I like to be humble, but I will say for some reason like I'm naturally good at that voice. I hope one day when I'm older I will start sounding like that. Hopefully it's not a bad sign of things to come. But I think I might actually do that voice better possibly. But Enforcer, what say you?
Damn, I thought I was doing it pretty good, like with the whole like the shot thing, but apparently not. But it is what it is. I guess you're getting both of them anyway, so you better just like them. But anyway, so that we are on to the next one.
And moving into our super chat questions here, our first super chat of the last segment, by the way, is going to go to none other than Hokey Redneck. And thank you very much, Hokey, for that $100 support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And that's very generous of you. He said, make auto-loading shotguns with targeting.
Honestly, you know what I was thinking maybe be a smart idea is to make a belt-fed shotgun, because then there's really no ammunition capacity that's say mag limited, because magazines are never going to be able to hold enough shotgun ammo. So if you had a belt-fed shotgun, if that was somehow doable, which I think it probably would be if we put enough engineering into it, you could definitely try and make a shotgun that have enough ammo that you could just mass saturate an incoming target well enough to eventually get it. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion, but I think that would be a pretty good idea. An automatic belt-fed shotgun, basically a machine gun, but instead of firing rifle cartridges, it fires shotgun shells instead. But a huge thanks to, and also Hoogie Redneck said full choke. Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. Full choke would be the best move for that, to try and get the widest spread. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, it's time for us to move on and into the next one.
Yeah, you remember those like Saiga shotguns, the Russian ones? Like, I remember when those were legal here in the United States, and they were all over gun stores all over the place in Alabama. Didn't they make those illegal?
I think it was the sanctions that were put onto them after the invasion in 2014 into Ukraine that stopped them from being around a whole lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember those were all over the place. I remember seeing those. So like an automatic shotgun. I'm like, that's kind of fascinating. They were actually in stores, like in Alabama at least. They were in gun stores around there, and then they just disappeared one day. And I assume that's because they outlawed them or something. That's my best guess.
So it looks like someone actually made a homemade belt-fed 12-gauge shotgun. So this is actually doable. So, I would say that that's probably the future, because think about it. You can put as many shotgun shells on a belt as you want. And if, it's like a normal belt-fed shotgun, you could link the belts together to make sure that it never runs out of ammo in theory. If it started to run low on one belt, just link another to it. You never have to really reload the thing. And so you have the automatic shotgun aspect. You have a lot of ammo to go with it. And with those two things combined, you certainly can. Well, you could miss, but the chances of that are going to be a lot less. So I hope that addresses that well, in my opinion, because I think that would be a great step forward and a very easy solution to field for infantry. It's just mass issuing belt-fed shotguns that are automatic. So a big thanks to you for the support. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $50 support from none other than Con45. And thank you very much, Con, for the generous $50 support. We do appreciate that. He said, my friends, Russia's most popular military blogger, Rybar, is now crying that there are now 20 to 70 Ukrainian drones to every one Russian soldier on the front lines. And Rybar is whining that have you ever, this loser, Rybar? Honestly, that's all the Russian bloggers. They're all losers. Like they're all of this mentality of like glazing the Putin regime, trying to pretend like Putin's looking out for their best interests. They're just propagandists by every measure of the term. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say I haven't really heard of that one in particular. There's a lot of Russian military bloggers out there, but I've never really considered them to be in that high of standing because, I think some people always kind of misunderstand this in the modern day. Russians are Russians, we're Americans. Like, a lot of people can say, oh, everybody gets along, it's the governments. No, those people don't get along with us. Like, most people in Russia don't like the United States. If they were actually honest about it, some of them might like the United States as an idea, like a place to visit or a thing to think about. But if it actually got down to cultural and political differences, they generally don't like the United States. And that's why, when people are like, well, we should try and understand the Russians and be friends with them, it's like, well, their government isn't, the people aren't. And so, that's kind of the end of the story. You really can't. It's kind of like saying, like North Korean people actually love America. It's like, why would we think that? Like I know a lot of people like to think that in other countries there's like a freedom of thought like there is in the United States, where some Americans will be simps for Russia, or like us will be simps for Ukraine. But in a place like North Korea, they're raised into an indoctrination system that starts at birth to make them hate the United States of America and look at the United States as imperialist warmongers, and to also make them worship the Kim dynasty. So why in the world would they ever love the United States of America? I mean, some of them do, because they end up starving, and then they end up defecting, and then they make it to South Korea or the United States. But for the larger part, most of them are actually going to hate the United States of America, because they've literally been indoctrinated since birth to believe that the United States is the fault of all of their problems in North Korea. So that's kind of the issue there that I have with things like that. Is like, it's like, do I like any Russian military bloggers? Not really, because they support Russian interests. I support American interests. Clearly an impasse, and I'm not really going to like them or respect them for that purpose. But a big thanks to you for support and help this channel to keep them running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a $50 support from LSA Animal Audio. And thank you very much for that $50 support, by the way. And we do appreciate that very much. It's extremely generous. They said, number one, the Strait and nuclear material are separate issues. Number two, we can start fighting for the Strait today. Number three, negotiating the nuclear material will be easier after we start fighting for the Strait. And four, back to pre-war is better than status quo.
I would agree with that 100%. That's exactly what we've been saying on air. Is that the nuclear issue doesn't need to be dealt with right now, at least. We need to get into a position where they have to meet our demands on the nuclear issue because they have no leverage over us, and then we can continue the war on however long we need to be able to achieve that objective in the future. So I'd 100% agree with you on that, LSA Animal Studio, because that's exactly what my point and premise on air as well. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And a huge thanks to you for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. And so huge thanks to you once again. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a $50 support from Kevin RM. And thank you very much, Kevin, for that 50 as well. We do appreciate that. He said, when do we just accept the Fallout universe is pretty much canon, but that we might be getting injected into it rapidly instead, LOL. You mean like Fallout, like the Fallout 3 and 4 and stuff like that, like the video games he talked about?
Yeah, he's talking about that.
I don't think we're gonna come to that, honestly. Like, I think it'll probably be worse than that. Like, here's the way I think about it. If there's a nuclear exchange like that, like something that's like modeled after the video game or something like that, that's pretty quick. One and done thing. You either survive it or you don't, and then you deal with the aftermath. Like it's a one and done thing. With a major war that gets into like ground fighting, missile attacks, drone attacks, and stuff like that, that is a long-term slog that's going to cost a ton of lives over the course of years and years. So I don't know. Like, to me, I find them both equally pretty bad personally.
I would say that we're probably never going to enter the Fallout kind of a world. Like at least the timeline, because I just don't think that things are going to be working out that way in the long run, especially since you probably are well versed with the lore to say that. So I don't think I'll have to explain it a whole lot, because you have to clearly know it to be able to bring that up. I don't think there's going to be a lot of lore elements, like for example Europe going to war in the Middle East to control the oil there, because they're relying on it. They are doing that now, and if they're not doing that now, they're not going to do that ever. Also, the other thing is that the problem with the Fallout universe is that the Fallout universe relies on, back in the day, nobody inventing semiconductors. So the computers would always remain incredibly large, clunky, and not as advanced as they are in the modern day. And so we've already well departed, really, from the Fallout sort of a universe. And on top of that, if I'm not mistaken, I don't really think there was any, sentient artificial intelligence for the larger part in any of the Fallout games or any of the Fallout canon lore, if I remember correctly. It was like kind of like automatons that were generally programmed to have certain sorts of outputs and certain things to certain sort of situations, but I don't really think they had any AI per se because the computers weren't advanced enough for it. So I would say generally, you know, there's some similarities here and there, but I would hope that we wouldn't go down that route. And also on top of that, if a nuclear war happens, the truth is, folks, is that life just sucks for a lot of people. You know, it's not going to be like the Fallout world where it's like, you know, the whole world's like some sort of a desert. Oh, well, yeah, man, they just brought up the synth, bro. Well, I forgot about the synths, dude. Like, I forgot about the synths from Fallout 4, man. Like, totally forgot about them.
Synths, man. Remember, there was the people that were like the elite that were the I think they were called the Institute, if I remember that properly. They were underground. They were like the elite, and then there was everybody else that was just left for themselves. Honestly, that was kind of like a fair critique, actually. It was kind of a little bit, like, accurate. Like, I feel like it might be like that. Like, not to, like, you know, pretend like a video game's real life or something like that, but it does seem like there's the people that are definitely the small group of haves, and then there's a huge group of have-nots, and it's starting to get worse.
You know, I think it's really something that they subverted the entire government of Diamond City because the mayor was a synth the whole time.
Man, honestly, I don't know what it is, but Fallout 4, like, even though it was a sort of like a depressing, like a setting for the thing, it was kind of like a calming game for some reason. I don't know why.
It was kind of calming. The one thing I hated, though, was those mutant, like, bombers. Like, you know, the ones I'm talking about, you know, like you would come up on some random, like, mutant group, you'd be like, oh, this is going to be easy. You shoot one of them, you start hearing that beeping, and then you see that red flashing thing coming off his chest as it's running at you. Dude, I hated those so much because they'd always get me. I never stopped them before they could blow up.
Yeah, it was always a pain. I hated that.
Man, honestly, man, for real. But beyond that, though, I do thank you incredibly for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to none other than Truck and Shelf. And thank you very much, Truck and Shelf, for that $50 support as well. And he said one more thing. He said, Enforcer Matt, starting to get into guns. And your honey badger sounds great. And also, it's a very nice gun. I like it a lot. It's just the only problem is now it's an SBR, so now there's a whole bunch of paperwork involved with it if you want to move. But he said, I want a 10-gauge shotgun. And is that better than the 12-gauge for punch? And what's a good pistol with a punch? Completely self-defense. Take the pistol in the truck. And I would say this, the Honey Badger is a completely unnecessary purchase. Like, I will admit that. Like, the Honey Badger was just something I've always wanted, like, personally. Like, it was like one of those holy grail purchases for me. So it's obscenely expensive, and I will never spend that much on a gun ever again in my life, or pretty much anything ever again in my life. When it comes to something, it's like a, I guess you could say, well, a liability, I guess you could say. It's not really an asset, it's more liability. That's the most I'll ever spend on something like that. But it does hold its value pretty decently. And also, it's a very cool looking gun, and it's very unique. You'll never really see another one that's quite like it, at least with the colors and stuff on it. But with shotguns, sadly, I don't know a whole bunch about shotguns. That's Andrew's wheelhouse. But for pistols, though, I can recommend you a good pistol. The best pistol that I can recommend for self-defense is a Glock. And some people hate Glocks because they call them the Tupperware guns. They're made of polymer, plastic. But me personally, I've always found that Glocks work every time I need it, and they never fail me. So I have the 43X for concealed carry on my person, and then I have the 19X for car carry on top of that. And also I have one more for the house, and then I have a couple of rifles. So that's what I would recommend. A good 9mm is all you need for self-defense. 9mm with hollows. That's what I do. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say, to answer the question about shotguns, I would say that a 10 gauge is good, but generally I go with 12 gauge because 12 gauge is pretty easy.
Still ongoing. We've seen various comings and goings, including the Secretary of State, the Vice President, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, but no word yet from President Trump on what, in fact, his final determination is when it comes to this prospective agreement with Iran. You know, we had heard that earlier this week, the Iranians came to the U.S. mediators to say that they were comfortable with the language of the plan. President Trump told his advisors that he would need a few days to make a final determination, all kind of culminating in this meeting in the Situation Room today. I think the thing that he will have been pressing his advisors on is what precisely has Iran agreed to as part of this deal. And in that lengthy Truth Social post, he does tick through a number of areas that he insists Iran must submit to his demands on, including that Iran not have a nuclear weapon, that they reopen the Strait of Hormuz, that they take out the mines that they have placed in the waterway. I will pull out sort of two interesting points that the president made here, which is one, that the naval blockade that the U.S. has imposed on Iranian ports will, quote, now be lifted. The president saying that that is lifted, even though at this point we don't understand that a deal has been signed. And then two, when it comes to the stockpile of highly enriched uranium that is believed to be buried very deep underground inside of Iran, the president says that enriched material will be unearthed by the United States and destroyed, suggesting that there has been some kind of agreement on what will happen to what he calls the nuclear dust. And that's surprising for two reasons. One is that our understanding is that the finer details of Iran's nuclear program are going to be left to future negotiations. You know, this memorandum is going to start a clock of 60 days where the two sides are supposed to really come to some kind of agreement on trying to curb Iran's nuclear ambitions. And two, the president suggesting here that Iran has submitted to having the U.S. come in, which would be a very dangerous mission, and destroy the material. What we have heard from Iran is that, in fact, the details of their nuclear program are not under discussion. And so I think a lot of questions still about what Iran has actually agreed to here, but President Trump
Breaking news, President Trump ending a 2-hour meeting in the Situation Room without making a final decision on Iran. He had insisted earlier, before it started, that he was going to make a final determination about a deal. And we'd learned a lot about that deal, that it would, in the first instance, have unrestricted navigation on the Strait of Hormuz, which of course was the status quo before the war started. Now, of course, the world knows that Iran can close the strait whenever it wants and is willing to do so, which is a permanent impact on global oil markets. Another thing we learned about the deal was that it would open another 60-day negotiation on Iran's nuclear program. So that was unresolved. But none of that was even confirmed after this 2-hour meeting in the Situation Room. Kareem Sajapur, our global affairs analyst and Iran expert, is out front now. He's got his latest article that is just posted, headline, "The War Trump Can't End in the Atlantic." And I hope you'll read it because I literally just posted a little bit ago here, Kareem. But I think your headline says it all. The war that Trump can't end.
You know, Aaron, the Islamic Republic of Iran since 1979 has been committed to resistance against America. That's part of their identity. It's not just a policy. And President Trump is now in a dilemma of his own making because, he pulled out of the Obama nuclear deal. He called it the worst deal ever. And he's now stepped into a situation in which he may be forced to provide Iran some pretty significant sanctions relief if he wants to reach at least a near-term resolution.
Yep. And I know even some of these things, you can't put the genie back in the bottle about the Strait of Hormuz, right? Always had been a threat. Now it's a reality. That's permanent. I know you've got new information about something at the very core of this, right? Iran's ability to build nuclear weapons, right? Trump had said last summer after the strikes that ability was obliterated. Then, of course, this war began, and here we are now. But you have new information on that. What have you learned?
So when you speak to people inside Tehran now, I think it's pretty clear that they've reached almost an internal consensus that the regime needs nuclear weapons as a cloak of protection. It doesn't take a grand strategist to look at the world and say the countries that gave up their nuclear programs, whether that was Saddam Hussein's Iraq or Gaddafi's Libya or post-Soviet Ukraine, they all made themselves vulnerable to external intervention. North Korea has nuclear weapons. It has this kind of cloak of immunity. So the danger here is that Iran has what they call these missile cities, which are potentially even deeper underground than some of their nuclear sites. And so any oral commitment Iran gives to not pursuing nuclear weapons is not something we can believe. And so we're going to have to stay incredibly vigilant about their clandestine activities.
Which is pretty incredible because prior to this, not only did every leader of Iran always say that they don't want a nuclear weapon because it was against the supreme leader, but they also, they would give all sorts of details on this. The fact that you're saying that there is a universal consensus that they need one would appear to be maybe not a full shift from all, but from some, a shift.
They're not going to admit that publicly, but I think internally, they realize that there's obviously profound mistrust with the United States. On 2 occasions while we were negotiating, they were attacked. And so, I think this is a challenge which is going to be with us beyond President Trump's presidency.
Are you surprised? 2 hours in the Situation Room, he said there'd be an announcement, nothing?
I'm not surprised because, unfortunately, when the president thinks of himself as this world-class deal maker, and there are no great deals here. If you want to resolve this issue, he's likely going to have to provide Iran sanctions relief or the unfreezing of assets, things he criticized President Obama for.
Situation Room to make what he called a final determination on a potential deal to end the conflict with Iran. The president emerged this afternoon with nothing to announce. Several hours later at 6 p.m., the White House put out the following brief statement, quote, "The Situation Room meeting is concluded. Lasted approximately 2 hours. President Trump will only make a deal that is good for Americans, satisfies his red lines. Iran can never possess a nuclear weapon." They've said nothing since. Meanwhile, as for what the U.S. could be facing should all-out fighting resume, a new CNN analysis shows that Iran is quickly digging out its vast underground missile arsenal, which was buried by American and Israeli airstrikes. CNN's Tamara Kablawi reports.
These are recent satellite images of Iran's missile bases, taken after the start of the ceasefire with the U.S. Israel. Dump trucks and excavators digging through piles of rubble along the mountainside. But it's what lies beneath the surface that makes this significant. A vast stockpile of missiles, trapped by U.S. bombs and likely intact, according to weapons experts, with satellite images showing Iran quickly regaining access to them, casting doubt on U.S. President Donald Trump's claims of having all but vanquished Iran's formidable rocket arsenal.
Their ability to launch missiles and drones is dramatically curtailed, and their weapons, factories, and rocket launchers are being blown to pieces. Very few of them left.
CNN previously identified a pattern of U.S.-Israeli strikes to put Iran's missile complexes out of commission. Not by destroying them, but by blocking the tunnel entrances leading in and out of them, leaving the rockets trapped inside and severely hampering Iran's ability to wreak havoc on U.S. allies in the region. But that was only a temporary solution. Iran is already undoing the effects of that strategy. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has acknowledged that Iran has been repairing the damage.
You are digging out your remaining launchers and missiles with no ability to replace them. You have no defense industry.
But the recovery is widespread and it is happening quickly. CNN looked at 69 tunnels across 18 underground missile bases. At least 50 of those access points appear to have been cleared, and many others are being repaired. Take this base in western Iran. Just weeks ago, U.S.-Israeli fighter jets destroyed all 4 entrances to the underground complex. But now, 2 of them appear wide open. The roads needed to wheel out its trapped rocket launchers repaved. And Iran is already in the process of clearing the remaining 2. It's also repaired some of the more than a dozen craters left behind by U.S.-Israeli munitions. The craters indicate that a large amount of firepower was used to destroy just 2 tunnel entrances. And all Iran needs to reopen them?
Welcome to Royal TV, Royal News TV. I appreciate you guys for watching the live. Please hit the like button. I really do need y'all support. We need y'all support. Please hit the like button and please subscribe. Please subscribe to comment in the chat. The more you subscribe, the more you hit the like button. It pushes the content farther out into the algorithm. You don't even gotta like the show. Just please hit the like button. Please share the live if you like what you hear. Peace.
Dump trucks and bulldozers. As Iran rallies around the missiles that survived the war, weapons experts say it will continue to come up with new ways to protect its arsenal from any renewed U.S.-Israeli bombing. Tamara Kablawi, CNN, London.
Well, in response to a request for comment on our reporting, the Pentagon referred CNN to a previous statement. It reads, "America's military is the most powerful in the world and has everything it needs to execute at the time and place of the president's choosing. We have executed multiple successful operations across combatant commands while ensuring the U.S. military possesses a deep arsenal of capabilities to protect our people and our interests."
The president spent nearly 2 hours inside the Situation presented to him, it would reopen the Strait of Hormuz, extend the ceasefire, and kick off 60 days of talks with the Iranians about the fate of their nuclear program. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, Vice President J.D. Vance were among the officials who joined the president inside the Situation Room today. And the president laid out his conditions before that meeting, posting on Truth Social that, quote, Iran must agree that they will never have a nuclear weapon or bomb. The Hormuz Strait must be immediately open, no tolls, for unrestricted shipping traffic in both directions. He also calls for all mines to be removed and for Iran's enriched uranium to be removed by the United States. My next guest served as the president's national security advisor in his first term and was the ambassador to the United Nations under President George W. Bush, Ambassador John Bolton.
It's really bad. The governor's corrupt. The attorney general is totally corrupt, just like the New York State Attorney General, Letitia James. She's a highly corrupt person. Bragg, the DA, is a corrupt person. They're all corrupt. These are corrupt people. And we got too many of them in our country. And we have to expose them, and we have to catch them. And if these two guys can't, these are high IQ people. I've always liked high IQ. These are high IQ people. If they don't do it, we're going to go a long way, fellas, to find somebody else that's going to. We have no choice. If honestly, and they may not do a good job. If they don't do a good job,
Thank you, sir.
no, it's possible. If they don't do a good job, the country's sort of in trouble. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Two questions.
And I think they're going to do a great job. Go ahead.
First, Mr. Vice President, Democrats are already calling you the fraud czar. What's your reaction to that title? And then second, given your past skepticism of foreign adventurism, are you completely on board with the current war in Iran?
So I like fraud czar. It's certainly what we're going to do. And look, we have to do it. As the president said, this problem that has festered in this country for far too long, and far too few people have actually wanted to do anything about it. That's what makes this administration different, is that we actually tackle the problems the American people have been confronting. So I'm very happy about it. And look, I think that I know what you're trying to do, Phil. You're trying to drive a wedge between members of the administration, between me and the president. What the president said consistently, going back to 2015, and I agreed with him, is that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. We have taken this military action under the president's leadership. I think all of us, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, should pray for success and pray for the safety of our troops. That's the approach that I've taken. Make it as successful as possible.
So there's no hesitation, given your past statements, with the current operation?
What do you mean there's no hesitation with my past statements?
Given your skepticism of foreign adventurism, you were a critic of the global war on terror previously.
Well, I think one big difference, Phil, is that we have a smart president, whereas in the past we've had dumb presidents. And I trust President Trump to get the job done, to do a good job for the American people, and to make sure that the mistakes of the past aren't repeated. Absolutely.
Look, JD's been great, but here's the simple thing. And I have, some people, I don't want wars. I want wars less than almost anybody. Peace through strength. But you know what? I've watched Iran for a long time. I called them out 20 years ago when I was a civilian that liked watching the world. And they're violent, vicious people. The leadership, violent, vicious people. They killed 32,000 protesters over the last 3 weeks. They put out a memo 2 days ago saying, if you protest, we will shoot you and kill you in the streets. And somebody said, oh, there's not that many protests. Well, first of all, there are bombs going off all over the place. But even if there weren't, who's going to do that? Who's going to do it? They don't have any guns, and the other ones have the latest in line machine gun, right? And every form of gun you can have. They shoot them right through the middle of the head. They're violent people. If they had a nuclear weapon, they would use it. And sometimes I'll have some of the people that, feel
Please
very
hit the like button, guys. Please hit the like button.
And I say,
please hit the like button and
and do you
please
think that
subscribe.
people are violent? Yes, leadership. Do you think they should have a nuclear weapon, which is massive power? I don't even want to discuss how powerful, because it's depressing. And they said, no, they shouldn't have. Definitely they shouldn't have. They said, and you don't want to fight war? No, we don't want to fight war. So these are naive people that frankly are stupid. If you believe that Iran should have a nuclear weapon, there's something wrong with you, because they would use it within, the only question is within an hour if they get it or one day. They will use it and they will blow up the entire Middle East, not just Israel. They'll start with Israel, but they will blow up. And you got to see that when they unexpectedly started sending missiles to every country within 1,000 miles of them. I mean, they're blowing up countries that were neighbors, not necessarily some friends. They actually were blowing up some friends. They were blowing up the people that handle their accounts. They're sending thousands of missiles into countries that didn't expect to be in the war because they wanted to take over the Middle East. And if I didn't terminate Barack Hussein Obama's horrible Iran nuclear deal, which I did in my first term, one of the dumbest deals, perhaps the dumbest deal because of the danger involved, you would have had them have a nuclear weapon 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. They would have used it, blown up the Middle East, and they would have then come after us. And if these gorgeous B-2 bombers, give me that bomber, Andrews. Let me just hug that little sucker. Give me that bomber over there. Thank you. You knew immediately which one. This looks small, but in person it's very big. It's the only plane capable of carrying a 200,000-pound bomb. So I don't know how they do it because it's very sleek and nice, but it carries a lot of weapons and there's a lot of bombs. But had I not sent this incredible machine times numerous others to hit Iran at midnight with no moon, dead dark, every single bomb was dropped right down the chute that it was supposed to hit. How they do it, who knows? Nobody else can figure. No other country can do it. No other country has our military or even close. And I think we've probably proven that with Venezuela and now with because we have done a number on Iran. But if I didn't do that, if I didn't decimate, I call it their nuclear dust, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 1 month after that bombing took place. And they would have used it on first Israel and then the Middle East. And you know that because all of those missiles that were launched against their neighbors were set long ago. Long before they knew they would be using them this quickly. Had we not done this, you would have had a nuclear war that would have evolved into World War III. And more important, this is a war that there would have been nothing left. So we've done a great thing. The people that say it's okay for a very sick ideology, a very sick country in terms of its leadership, very good people, great people. But the people that say that, I think they're actually, they're either evil or they're stupid. So if you believe that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon, they should not have it, then you have to absolutely love what I've done because 2 weeks we have decimated them. They have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft weapons, they have no leadership. The leadership is gone. But then they set up a new leadership to go and name a new leader, and that leadership is gone. And now they think maybe Sun is gone. They're all gone. My biggest problem is I have no idea who we're talking to because nobody ever heard of any of these people. They're all dead. But we did a job for the world, not a job for us, for the whole world. We took the worst country in 50 years and maybe longer from the ideological standpoint, a country that wanted to blow up the country that is sick. And it has you add religion, you know, people don't realize more people died in religious wars than every other war put together. And that's what you would have had here. And it was a terrible thing. I'm very proud of what we did. And I think JD understands better than most. If you give Iran a nuclear weapon, at least a very substantial...
Peace and blessings. Welcome to Royal News TV. And if you're watching, please hit the like button. The more you hit the like button, it gets the content farther out into the algorithm where people can watch and tap in. And if you're new here, please support the family by subscribing. We need all the support we can get. Please, we need all your help.
part of the world would be blown up, and it'll be used almost immediately. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You don't mind if I keep this here, do you? Isn't that a beautiful thing? You know, I used to look at it, and I said, it's a piece of art, but how can it be effective? It's so stealth. Think of it, Peter. 1 in the morning, it flies in, and they say, sir, they're in Iranian airspace. And I say, oh, and I'm watching it from the Situation Room with a couple of other very smart people, including some good generals, real generals, not television generals. And all of a sudden you see that dive, they start diving, and sure, and you see them 30,000, 20,000. Boy, I said, that was a lot. They went down fast to aim it. And they know they're coming, and they're smart, and they never saw them. And they're firing a little bit, but they don't know what they're firing at because they can't see a thing. And then you hear the biggest explosions that anybody's ever heard. Those are the biggest bombs. Outside of nuclear, those are the biggest bombs. And you say, what technology we have. What a great country. I built it, largely, I built it during my first term. I built it. I didn't know I'd have to use it this much in my second term. But we had an incompetent president. We had an incompetent group of people in any form, whether it's Kamala, him, it doesn't matter. Would have had another 4 years, we would have had no country left. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You say you're doing a job for the rest of the world. In your conversations with your counterparts, are they thanking you? What are their conversations like when you talk about this military conflict that's taking place in Iran?
Well, they should be thanking me because many of them get 90%. China, as an example, should be thanking us, but I don't expect to thank you, but they should be thanking us. Japan gets in the 90s to 100. I would say some are virtually 100%. And the interesting thing is that way not only with the Republic, I'm not talking about leadership, I'm talking about they're that way also, most importantly, with the people. The people of our country want voter ID. The people of our country want proof of citizenship. And that includes 88%, 89% of Democrats. And I think the Republicans, Eric Schmidt, Rick Scott, Tim Scott, I speak to so many of them, they all want it. I hope John Thune can get it across the line. He's trying. I mean, he told me this morning, I spoke to him, he's trying. I think it'll be a very, very bad thing for our country if they don't. We're just asking for basic things. Think of it. You can't have voter ID. Do you know in California, if you ask a person to show their identification, they have the right to put you in jail. If you're an official,
what?
And you say, may I please see your identification, you're subject to going to jail. That's how crazy it's gotten. With a low IQ person, you know, because Gavin Newsom has admitted that he has learning disabilities. Honestly, I'm all for people with learning disabilities, but not for my president. I think a president should not have learning disabilities, okay? And I know it's highly controversial to say such a horrible thing. The president of the United States, Gavin Newsom, admitted that he has learning disabilities, dyslexia, everything about him is dumb. But then he looked at the audience and said, but smarter than you, or something like that. That was pretty silly. So now on top of everything else, I call him a racist because it happened to be a black audience. I will tell you this. I think it was the worst interview I've ever seen of any human being in my life, okay? Anybody else have any questions?
Will it be necessary to use even limited ground force to secure whatever nuclear material remains in Iran is part of that threat?
No.
And secondly, have you made a decision?
You mean to go in and get it?
Yes, sir.
Why would I tell you a thing like that?
And second,
you know, I can't say to reporters, sir, will you attack Carg Island? Will you occupy Carg? They ask me these questions. And I don't want to be mean, but they're stupid questions. If any president answered those questions, they shouldn't be president.
and secondly, sir, do you still plan to travel to Beijing at the end of this?
I don't know. We're working on that right now. We're speaking to China. I'd love to, but because of the war, I want to be here. I have to be here, I feel. And so we've requested that we delay it a month or so, and I'm looking forward to being with them. We have a very good relationship, but because of the war, there's no tricks to it either. It's not like, oh, gee, I'm waiting. It's very simple. We got a war going on. I think it's important that I be here. You know? So it could be that we delay it a little bit. Not much. Peter?
When you say Cuba is next.
Cuba.
Is Cuba, whatever you do with the military there, it seems like something, will that look more like Iran or Venezuela?
Can't tell you that. I can tell you that they're talking to us. It's a failed nation. They have no money, they have no oil, they have no nothing. They have nice land. They have nice landscape, you know. It's a beautiful island. I think they have great people. You know, I know so many people from Cuba that were treated terribly, and they're over here and they became rich. They're very entrepreneurial people, very smart. I know a lot from Florida, especially. There's so many people. A friend of mine started over with nothing. He's now the largest owner of gas stations in the country and stuff. I mean, Cuban. I also know, I was just with a fantastic person who's Cuban and made a fortune in sugar. You know, Fanjul family, right? And this family wants to go back to Cuba to visit it. They haven't been back in like 50 years or something. They largely come from Cuba. And we'll see what happens. They were asking me about that. They want to go back. Not only Fanjul, a lot of Cubans have said, oh boy, would they love to go back. I think Cuba, I don't know, in its own way, if tourism and everything else, it's a beautiful island, great weather. They're not in a hurricane zone, which is nice for a change, you know. They won't be asking us for money for hurricanes every week. But I think Cuba's seen the end. You know, all my life I've been hearing about the United States and Cuba. When will the United States do it? I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba. That'd be good. That's a big honor.
Taking Cuba.
Taking Cuba in some form, yeah. Taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I could do anything I want with it. You want to know the truth? They're a very weakened nation right now. They were for a long time. Very violent leaders. Castro was a very violent leader. His brother's a very violent leader. Extremely violent. That's how they governed. They governed with violence. But a lot of people would like to go back. Okay, one more question.
Quick question on fraud for Vice President Vance. Mr. Vice President, you announced a couple of weeks ago in the EOB that the administration will be halting Medicaid payments to Minnesota until the state decided to take pervasive steps to root out fraud. Do you have an update to that specific situation?
I think hopefully it's going to be JD's. This will not be like a Kamala where she was put in charge of the border and she never went there, JD, right? You promise?
I promise, sir.
Remember, Kamala was put in charge. She was the border czar. She never went to the border. She never called any of the great border patrol. The border patrol testified. We never spoke to her in 4 years. And that was a disaster, but this is different. This is a different group of people. I think maybe before JD, I'll ask Stephen Miller to say a few words too, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, under President Trump's leadership, as we've seen, the illegal flow across the southern border was stopped completely. But what we found since President Trump came into office is that the Democrats have set up a system to funnel hundreds of billions and ultimately trillions of dollars to migrants that are in our country, oftentimes from places like Somalia. So as an example, ICE recently asked a group of illegal immigrants that were in detention whether or not they were receiving Medicaid. Half of them raised their hands and volunteered that they were on Medicaid. Just volunteered that. These aren't the ones who are hiding. Illegal aliens how they pay their medical bills, and they said that if they don't have Medicaid, they go to hospitals, they get free care there, and they bill it to the taxpayers. So they aren't paying for any of their own health care in this country. This is one example. And we've seen this over and over and over again. So under President Trump's leadership, and then of course with JD and the head of the FTC, Andrew Ferguson, we are going to see the first ever effort in American history to reclaim the ultimately trillions of dollars that were stolen from taxpayers. I believe we'll see that if all of it were stopped, it would be enough to balance the budget. The extraction of wealth from American taxpayers to people who don't belong here is the primary cause of the national debt, and this is the first ever effort to shut that down. Thank you, Mr. President.
First ever. And everyone knows they've been cheating for years. It's the first ever. And it's got to be stopped. I mean, it's got to be stopped. Think of it, Somalia is a third world, maybe a fourth world nation. One of the worst, one of the most dangerous. They don't have anything. They don't have councils. They don't have government. They don't have police. They shoot each other all over the place. They come here and they steal $19 billion. That's crazy. And Ilhan Omar, I hope this is part of it, but she married her brother, supposedly. I mean, there's a lot of documentation. That means she's here illegally and she's a congresswoman. And I hope you're going to be looking at that, or somebody is, all right? Because she's one of the ringleaders here. She's bad news, really bad news. She's so bad for our country. Anyway, JD, please say a few words.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, Mr. President. This is a very important whole of government approach to tackle the fraud problem. And let me just tell one story. One of the things that even before this executive order was signed that we were able to stop under the president's leadership is we saw evidence that in Minneapolis, there were Somalis, primarily illegal immigrants, who were defrauding a Medicaid program that was meant to go to autistic children. So they were taking children who were supposed to get benefits, and they were claiming that their kids were actually autistic and weren't. And what did this mean? This meant two things. Number one, you had a lot of people getting rich off of the fraud while American citizens got poor. And the second thing that it meant is that you had autistic kids in Minneapolis, in suburban Minneapolis, who weren't getting benefits they needed because Somali fraudsters were literally stealing out of their pocket. It's got to stop. Unfortunately, that kind of fraud is one example of probably hundreds just within the state of Minneapolis, and then it's repeated and replayed all over the United States of America. When we first started talking about this problem, the president made it very clear he wanted us to take the fraud problem seriously because nobody had until he was president. We started to figure out one big hole that existed is that the agencies of the government weren't actually talking to each other. So Treasury would have evidence of financial fraud, but wasn't talking to the Department of Justice about it. Health and Human Services had evidence of Medicaid fraud, but wasn't talking to the Department of Treasury about it. So what this executive order does is force the entire apparatus of the federal government to do two things: stop the fraud in the American taxpayer and make sure that the benefits that ought by right go to American citizens and not to fraudsters. Andrew Ferguson will be the vice chair and is going to do a great job. If you're curious what's the difference between the vice chair and the vice chair is going to do all the work, and I'm going to take all the credit. Andrew.
Yeah, look, I mean, millions and millions of Americans pay into these programs every day, and they expect to get something out of it. And this fraud is just siphoning money that millions of Americans pay to fund their hospitals, to fund their daycare centers, into completely fake businesses. It isn't just unfair to all of us as taxpayers who pay for all this. It's particularly unfair to the Americans who need this the most and watch this money leave their hospital, leave their school system, and go out to fraud. And that is why this effort is so important. And I think we've just begun really looking at this, but I think that one of the things we're going to find is that in a lot of these agencies, the previous administration was pretty lax about existing anti-fraud controls, and we're going to expose that too.
I would take the word pretty out. I would change it with unbelievably lax. They were not even. The previous administration was fraudulent, okay, and I think that's what you're going to find also. And you know, we worked so hard, like most favored nations drug prices. For years, people have wanted. We paid the highest drug prices anywhere in the world by far, by 5 times, 6 times, 10 times more than London would be paying in New York, more than any city in Europe was paying than our cities. We would have a pill that would sell for $10 in Munich. In Germany, we sell for $10, and in New York, it would be $130 or whatever. And we worked so hard, and we pulled it off. It's called Most Favored Nations. So now we went from by far the most expensive drugs anywhere in the world, prescription drugs, to the least expensive. And I had to get all the nations to agree, and I don't want to bore you with how I did it, but I did it. Everyone said it was impossible to do, including the drug companies, and we did it. And we worked so hard on it, and we're going to save so much money for the people. And your drug prices are going to be dropping at levels never even, by 50, 60, 70, 80% in some cases. But you work so hard, and then you see them stealing $19 billion. It's like in one pocket, out the other. And I think Andrew and JD, I think they have maybe one of the most important jobs. Maybe it could be one of the most important things that we're signing because I really believe that they have an opportunity to do something so good for our country. Please hit the like button and please subscribe. You know, people talk about balancing budgets. You can't balance a budget when people are stealing $19 billion and nobody's ever heard of anything like it. We had, I guess, in the same state, you went autism, where 4 or 5 years ago, they spent $1 million, and now it's almost $400 million in just a few years. Well, autism didn't go up like that, and even the 1 million was probably a fraud, but it went from 1 million to almost 400 million in just a few years. These are crooked people. They basically said everybody in the state had autism. These are crooked, horrible people. And, you know, I was elected with JD, Make America Great Again. That was and we can't have this stuff happening. Right. We have to be respected. And they left. So I'm going to sign this. We'll take some questions, but let me sign this first. Before I don't forget, let's see. Before I decide not to, okay?
Yes, sir.
I don't forget not to, but maybe I'll decide not to. I would decide not to. If I didn't think they could do the job, I would decide not to. But that'll be a terrible thing. I think they're going to find numbers. Andrew, I think you're going to find numbers that are far higher than you even think. And you know, Andrew came to us. He said, "Sir, he's read the stories about Minnesota. We know California is many times worse, but Minnesota is terrible. They're all terrible. Those cities are terrible. New York is terrible. What's going on in Chicago, Illinois, with that slob of a governor is terrible. And the kind of money we're talking about is just country changing. It's country changing money. It's having a deficit to having a really profitable country where you can lower your taxes substantially for people. And I think you have an opportunity to do it. And I think if you guys can't do it, we've got a problem, because nobody else will be able to do it.
Yes, sir.
So I'll sign, and then we'll take some nice questions from our wonderful media. Okay.
Go on.
Here you go. They're very important. That's a big deal. We've been working on this very long, bro.
Yes,
See,
sir.
right? Will?
Yes, sir.
Andrew, do you have a question?
Yes, Mr. President. You said during your State of the Union that this type of fraud, the corruption, is the type of thing that can shred the fabric of a nation. Why do you suppose then that leaders of recent memory haven't looked at the systemic amount of fraud that's taking place? And
because they're crooked. They make money. They gain power. They use it for power. Like with the Somalians, they vote in a block, 100%. They make a deal with the Somalians. They all vote because they're on a gravy train. It's money first, power second. A lot of people say power first. No, it's money first, power second. Do you ever see where, like, Mercedes, people come over from Somalia, they have no money, and now they're buying Mercedes-Benz cars, okay? It's more cash goes out of the Minnesota airport than any other place in the world or something. We're going to find it. And Minnesota is really bad. The governor's corrupt. The attorney general is totally corrupt, just like the New York State attorney general, Letitia James. She's a highly corrupt person. Bragg, the DA, is a corrupt person. They're all corrupt. These are corrupt people. And we got too many of them in our country. And we have to expose them, and we have to catch them. And if these two guys can't, these are high IQ people. I've always liked high IQ. These are high IQ people. If they don't do it, we're going to go a long way, fellas, to find somebody else that's going to. We have no choice. If honestly, and they may not do a good job. If they don't do a good job.
Thank you, sir.
No, it's possible. If they don't do a good job, the country's sort of in trouble. Yes, go ahead.
Thanks, sir. Two questions.
And I think they're going to do a great job. Go ahead.
First, Mr. Vice President, Democrats are already calling you the fraud czar. What's your reaction to that title? And then second, given
I like
your past skepticism of foreign adventurism, are you completely on board with the current war in Iran?
So I like fraud czar. It's certainly what we're going to do. And look, we have to do it. As the president said, this is a problem that has festered in this country for far too long, and far too few people have actually wanted to do anything about it. That's what makes this administration different, is that we actually tackle the problems the American people have been confronting. So I'm very happy about it. And look, I think that I know what you're trying to do, Phil. You're trying to drive a wedge between members of the administration, between me and the president. What the president said consistently, going back to 2015, and I agreed with him, is that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. We have taken this military action under the president's leadership. I think all of us, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, should pray for its success and pray for the safety of our troops. That's the approach that I've taken. Make it as successful as possible.
So there's no hesitation, given your past statements, with the current operation?
What do you mean there's no hesitation with my past statements?
Given your skepticism of foreign adventurism, you were a critic of the global war on terror previously.
Well, I think one big difference, Phil, is that we have a smart president, whereas in the past we've had dumb presidents. And I trust President Trump to get the job done, to do a good job for the American people, and to make sure that the mistakes of the past aren't repeated. Absolutely.
So JD's been great, but here's the simple thing, and I have, some people, I don't want wars. I want wars less than almost anybody. Peace through strength. But you know what? I've watched Iran for a long time. I've called them out 20 years ago when I was a civilian that liked watching the world. And they're violent, vicious people. The leadership, violent, vicious people. They killed 32,000 protesters over the last 3 weeks. They put out a memo 2 days ago saying, if you protest, we will shoot you and kill you in the streets. And somebody said, oh, there's not that many protests. Well, first of all, there are bombs going off all over the place. But even if there weren't, who's going to do that? You know, who's going to do it? They don't have any guns, and the other ones have latest in line machine gun, right? And every form of gun you can have. They shoot them right through the middle of the head. They're violent people. If they had a nuclear weapon, they would use it. And sometimes I'll have some of the people that, you know, feel very strongly, like I do about wars. And I say, do you think Iran is violent? And do you think their people are violent? Yes, leadership. Do you think they should have a nuclear weapon, which is massive power? I don't even want to discuss how powerful because it's depressing. And they said, no, they shouldn't have. Definitely they shouldn't have. They said, and you don't want to fight war? No, we don't want to fight war. So these are naive people that frankly are stupid. If you believe that Iran should have a nuclear weapon, there's something wrong with you, because they would use it within, the only question is within 1 hour if they get it, or 1 day. They will use it, and they will blow up the entire Middle East, not just Israel. They'll start with Israel, but they will blow up. And you got to see that when they unexpectedly started sending missiles to every country within 1,000 miles of them. I mean, they're blowing up countries that were neighbors, not necessarily some friends. They actually were blowing up some friends. They were blowing up the people that handle their accounts. They're sending thousands of missiles into countries that didn't expect to be in the war because they wanted to take over the Middle East. And if I didn't terminate Barack Hussein Obama's horrible Iran nuclear deal, which I did in my first term, one of the dumbest deals, perhaps the dumbest deal because of the danger involved, you would have had them have a nuclear weapon 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. They would have used it, blown up the Middle East, and they would have then come after us. And if these gorgeous B-2 bombers, give me that bomber, Andrews. Let me just hug that little sucker. Give me that bomber over. Thank you. You knew immediately which one. This looks small, but in person it's very big. It's the only plane capable of carrying a 200,000. I don't know how they do it because it's very sleek and nice, but it carries a lot of weapons and there's a lot of bombs. But had I not sent this incredible machine times numerous others to hit Iran at midnight with no moon, dead dark, every single bomb was dropped right down the chute that it was supposed to hit. How they do it, who knows? Nobody else can figure. No other country can do it. No other country has our military or even close. And I think we've probably proven that with Venezuela and now with because we have done a number on Iran. But if I didn't do that, if I didn't decimate, I call it their nuclear dust, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 1 month after that bombing took place. And they would have used it on first Israel and then the Middle East. And you know that because all of those missiles that were launched against their neighbors were set long ago, long before they knew they would be using them this quickly. Had we not done this, you would have had a nuclear war that would have evolved into World War III. And more important, this is a war that there would have been nothing left. So we've done a great thing. The people that say it's okay for a very sick ideology, a very sick country in terms of its leadership, very good people, great people. But the people that say that, I think they're actually, they're either evil or they're stupid. So if you believe that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon, they should not have it, then you have to absolutely love what I've done, because in 2 weeks we have decimated them. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They have no anti-aircraft weapons. They have no leadership. The leadership is gone. But then they set up a new leadership to go and name a new leader, and that leadership is gone. And now they think maybe the sun is gone. They're all gone. My biggest problem is I have no idea who we're talking to because nobody ever heard of any of these people. They're all dead. But we did a job for the world, not a job for us, for the whole world. We took the worst country in 50 years and maybe longer from the ideological standpoint, a country that wanted to blow up the world, a country that is sick, and it has a religious fervor. And when you add religion, you know, people don't realize more people died in religious wars than every other war put together. And that's what you would have had here. And it was a terrible thing. I'm very proud of what we did. And I think JD understands better than most. If you give Iran a nuclear weapon, at least a very substantial part of the world would be blown up, and it'll be used almost immediately. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You don't mind if I keep this here, do you? It's not. You know, I used to look at it, and I said, it's a piece of art, but how can it be effective? It's so stealth. Think of it, Peter. 1 in the morning, it flies in, and they say, sir, they're in Iranian airspace. And I say, oh, and I'm watching it from the Situation Room with a couple of other very smart people, including some good generals, real generals, not television generals. And all of a sudden you see that dive, they start diving, and sure, and you see him 30,000, 20,000. Boy, I said, that was a lot. They went down fast to aim it. And they know they're coming, and they're smart, and they never saw them, and they're firing a little bit, but they don't know what they're firing at because they can't see a thing. And then you hear the biggest explosions that anybody's ever heard. Those are the biggest bombs. Outside of nuclear, those are the biggest bombs. And you say, what technology we have. What a great country. I built it, largely, I built it during my first term. I built it. I didn't know I'd have to use it this much in my second term. But we had an incompetent president. We had an incompetent administration. And if that group of people in any form, whether it's Kamala, him, it doesn't matter, would have had another 4 years, we would have had no country left. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You say you're doing a job for the rest of the world. In your conversations with your counterparts, are they thanking you? What are their conversations like when you talk about this military conflict that's taking place in Iran?
Well, they should be thanking me because many of them get 90%. China, as an example, should be thanking us, but I don't expect to thank you, but they should be thanking us. Japan gets 95%, China 91%. Many of the countries, South Korea gets a tremendous percentage of their oil and therefore their energy from the Straits, or as they call it, the Strait. And they should be not only thanking us, they should be helping us. What does surprise me is that they're not eager to help. There are a couple, we'll be announcing some names soon. There are some that really were right up front. I would announce the name now other than, maybe they'd prefer it not being announced for whatever reason. I will say this, it's a lot easier to get people today than it was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, before we destroyed before we obliterated the country, before we took out, because they're down to about 8% of their missiles, they're down to a small portion of their drones, and we've demolished many of their factories where they make the missiles and the drones, and the rest are all following. Our military has been amazing. We hit Karg Island, took out every single thing in Karg Island except one thing. We left the pipes, because if we take out the pipes, it takes a long time to build them. And at some point, something is going to happen that's positive with respect to those pipes. But there are some countries that greatly disappointed me. And, I'm the one that got them to pay.
Chat, I just want to do this. Bow your heads. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, and deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. And please, bless the spirit world the people that's stuck on the other side between the third and the fourth dimension. And just because I prayed, it went to 0. But God, make sure my voice be heard without the internet or the internet. May I grow and be blessed. And bless the spirit world. Bless everybody in the chat. Bless everybody who clicked this on the back end. And don't forget the spirits that's stuck in between the third and the fourth dimension. Loved ones. And the universe. That represents peace, love, and happiness. And let us all say, Amen.
2% to 5% of GDP, NATO. And I get along great with those countries in NATO, but I always said, the problem with NATO is we'll always be there for them, but they'll never be there for us. And when I hear the UK, which was sort of considered the Rolls Royce of allies, right? When you say they were the oldest and they were going to be there, and I say it would be really helpful if you'd send over a couple of ships, and if you have some minesweepers, which they do, be very helpful. And the Prime Minister is a nice man. I think he's a very nice guy. He says, well, I'd like to ask my team. I said, you don't have to worry about a team. You don't have a team. You're the Prime Minister. You can make a decision. Well, I have to speak to my people. I said, you don't have to speak to anybody. So it's very disappointing. And then after we obliterated them and destroyed their military, the whole thing, and it became a much safer zone, he said, we're going to send over 2 aircraft carriers. I said, I don't want them anymore. I don't want them after.
Possible to do this as a full-time job over the years. It's truly wild. And also, we're very grateful.
I would have to agree. We're extremely grateful for it. And it's even crazier, folks. When you look at something like this, we were number 25 in America yesterday. I got to say, folks, that we kind of I think Matthew and me, we kind of take it for granted a little bit, but we still greatly appreciated that the channel has gotten to where it is these days. Because I remember, folks, a long time ago, 1,556 days ago, this channel started covering the news. And I remember I was being told by some people that it was never going to go anywhere. It was going to fall flat and die. Just completely pointless. Only idiots do this sort of a thing. And 1,556 days later, they were wrong, and we're still here. And I think that's actually something crazy to think about, because y'all would not even know. I've never gotten into that on my side, especially during the first month that the channel was running, but before even Enforcer Matt came on. But there was a lot of pushback behind the scenes, an insane amount of it, about doing this and how losers do it, and you're going to be a bum and everything. And it was like nothing but I was having to fight everything behind the scenes to try and keep the thing on air, to not have external influences try and force me off of the air, to keep the thing running. And then Matthew came on, and then we kept it going, and now it's it's where it is today. It's really crazy to think about that, because it feels like eons ago, but in reality that wasn't all too long ago, just 4 or 5 years ago at this point that happened. And eventually it turned into this. So I'm very happy and proud of where we've made it, because it's been a long road, folks, and it's crazy to think we've made it all the way to here. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and a big thanks to you for support and help this channel to keep on running once again, Slow Sparks. And with that, we are on, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, to the final question of the night. And so, who is the last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer, also, by the way, I see people saying almost 600,000 subs, like Miss Disa said that. It's a slow crawl to 600,000. For whatever reason, I think people are getting out during the summer. That's my excuse, by the way. I'm not totally sure. It seems like a lot of geopolitical channels right now are struggling to gain subscribers.
Intervention. North Korea has nuclear weapons. It has this kind of cloak of immunity. So the danger here is that Iran has what they call these missile cities, which are potentially even deeper underground than some of their nuclear sites. And so any oral commitment Iran gives to not pursuing nuclear weapons is not something we can believe. And so we're going to have to stay incredibly vigilant about their clandestine activities.
Which is pretty incredible because prior to this, not only did every leader of Iran always say that they don't want a nuclear weapon because it was against the supreme leader, but they also, they would give all sorts of details on this. The fact that you're saying that there is a universal consensus that they need one would appear to be maybe not a full shift from all, but from some, a shift.
They're not going to admit that publicly, but I think internally.
So allegedly, well, that's not allegedly, Donald Trump has pretty much got up today out of his seat and left out the meeting in between the Iran and American agreement again. So, you know, Trump is still putting pressure like every other president. After all these years, they are, if this is all over nuclear, like, I don't really think you need it. It's too much. Just imagine a baby, his first time, imagine a kid receiving his first pair of Jordans. That's just like a kid receiving his first pair of Jordans and everybody got them, everybody ballers out, everybody players, you know what I'm saying? You gotta be all right, you gotta be, you know what I'm saying, inside out just to have these Jordans, not just a rookie, you know, especially if you was, you know, your name was out there or something like that. But Iran getting his first pair of Jordans and you could sit up big dog. Man, you finna clown. Tongue hanging out like Jordan and everything. No. Iran does not need no nuclear. I want to do they still circumcise they women over there. Anyway, I'm going to leave that alone. Oh, I hear things. Some of them still do the old Bible ways, but it was never said in scripture circumcise women. And two, I heard that is evident. I don't know, but I heard. I could be wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm talking shit, Charlotte Spit don't even know what I'm talking about. Shut up. Tell me. I accept healthy criticism. That's good for me to know. I don't want to give y'all wrong information, but I heard this years ago. So there's nothing new to me. You know, it's a lot of things I received through over the years since the COVID, since when, but I think Biden became president or something like that, and there was a war broke out over the Taliban again or something like that. And then there's something certain eclipse or whatever, and that's right along that time when the Pope said, this is the beginning of World War III. He said that. I don't know if y'all Pope thumpers, you know what I'm saying? If y'all up on y'all Pope, y'all will know he said that some years back. Couple of years, not years, a couple. And then, you know, we've been having the most eclipses I ever seen. Y'all remember we had that back-to-back, what was the Lions Gates, then the Orion Belt, then the black, whatever, moon. It was like some back-to-back shit. Then the shift. And we don't want to get old. We don't even want to talk about the release files from the, you know. Y'all know what I'm talking about. We don't even want to get on the release files. We'll get to that later. Make sure y'all subscribe though. Make sure y'all subscribe. Make sure y'all subscribe where y'all can catch up with me. And if y'all like my vibe, man, vibe with me, vibe out with me. Communicate. I want to get to know y'all in the chat, because we plan to grow as we need to go over here. So that's why I want to get to know y'all now, because one day it's going to be, I ain't going to be able to just go through all that. I'm going to just have to, because that's the plan. We're a family. We're a goal. We're a team. Oh, yeah, and I'm all about the chakras and, you know what I'm saying, the meditation. We're definitely going to get into that, you know, to the root, to the sacral, to the solar plex, to the heart, to the throat, to the third eye, to the crown. And there's many of that. It's a couple of more. So when you pass the crown, it's all elemental. That's more like an astral projection. That's more like actually when David, you know, when the angel took David to heaven. You understand what I'm saying? When the angels came down and gave them a dream and they prophesied. We talking about that level. That's beyond the crown chakra. That's the 8th chakra. The 8 and the 9 chakra. And so on. But we ain't even scratched the layers of the root chakra, and that's the beginning. Because the mind is clouded. The mind is clouded. I know this is probably the first time y'all hear your brother talk. Well, this is Shane-O, you know what I'm saying, known as Chopper. And, you know, this is my baby right here, even though it's small. But I got other big channels, but I don't want them no more. I want to start off with, you know, this is like Jay-Z baby. You know, when he says his baby, his favorite album is Reasonable Doubt. That's his baby right there. This is Reasonable Doubt. This is my baby right here. Because we're going to keep it real, you know. And, you know, big eyes and big little U's. With all of us, is it a limit? I mean, how I'm gonna connect, how I'm gonna get out if I don't listen? Yes, I'm supposed to be bringing out y'all the royal news. I'm fully aware of iron sharpened iron and leading not to my own understanding. I am not a chief critic. I will never judge God's handiwork. That was some wise words that say Spillade. But we're gonna get back to this. And so I want y'all to ask a question. Do y'all think Iran should have a nuclear weapon? Drop a comment in the chat if y'all think Iran should have nuclear weapon. And don't forget to subscribe.
There's obviously profound mistrust with the United States. On 2 occasions while we were negotiating, they were attacked. And so, I think this is a challenge which is going to be with us beyond President Trump's presidency.
Are you surprised? 2 hours in Situation Room, he said there'd be an announcement, nothing?
I'm not surprised because, unfortunately, when the president thinks of himself as this world-class deal maker, and there are no great deals here. If you want to resolve this issue, he's likely going to have to provide Iran sanctions relief or the unfreezing of assets, things he criticized President Obama for.
Situation Room to make what he called a final determination on a potential deal to end the conflict with Iran. The president emerged this afternoon with nothing to announce. Several hours later at 6 p.m., the White House put out the following brief statement, quote, "The Situation Room meeting is concluded lasted approximately 2 hours. President Trump will only make a deal that is good for Americans, satisfies his red lines. Iran can never possess a nuclear weapon. They've said nothing since. Meanwhile, as for what the U.S. could be facing should all-out fighting resume, a new CNN analysis shows that Iran is quickly digging out its vast underground missile arsenal, which was buried by American and Israeli airstrikes. CNN.
Peace and blessings. We're going to cut it short. I have been live for a little bit, and it's past my bedtime. You know, I got to go to work. But we definitely going to get back on time. I can do about it. You know what I'm saying? Please come again. Make sure y'all subscribe so we can vibe again. You know, all the collectives, all the enlightenment mindedness, all the, you know, we can all raise our vibrations together. Because I'm still focusing on that, but myself, but especially when we on the right page, you know, peace, love, and harmony, the universal law. Not man's law, the universal law. In the universe, peace, love, and harmony. And one of the favorites that the beings like to say, clarification. Clarification. Peace and light.